My father was so worried I wouldn't be able to start a family that he actually got his old comrade's beautiful granddaughter drunk. After it was all over, my father used the debt of gratitude to force her to marry me. But on our wedding night, I found out that Cheng Mukchu already had someone in her heart. For 30 years of marriage, I never once got to experience what it felt like to be a husband. As soon as I passed away in loneliness, Cheng Mukchu immediately went to the capital to settle down with her one true love. Now that I've been given a second chance at life, I will never get entangled with Cheng Mukchu again. I went to the Civil Affairs Bureau to apply for a forced divorce. 1 month from now, I will be free. I returned home, tidied up the closet, and had just finished cooking. Cheng Mukchu walked in. She was tall and slender. Her features were refined, and she looked her most heroic and valiant when wearing her military uniform. Before we were married, she was the dream goddess for all the men in the military district. In my past life, I fell in love with her at first sight for that very reason. So I wouldn't be noticed. I stepped forward, wanting to take off her jacket for her. But Cheng Mukchu stepped back, her expression indifferent, her clothes covered in dust. "Don't get your hands dirty," she said, her tone so polite that no one could find any fault with it. It was also so cold and distant, as if we weren't a couple married for 3 years. If this were the past, I would have surely pretended not to hear her and reached out to unbutton her coat anyway. Cheng Mukchu wouldn't have refused me, but there would have definitely been a cold look of disgust in her star-like almond eyes. I was deeply stung by that look for 30 years. It left scars on my heart that would never heal. But this time, I just nodded, pulled my hand back, and turned around. "I'll go get the food from the kitchen. I made your favorite scrambled eggs. Come and see if it's to your taste." Cheng Mukchu took off her coat. Unmoved. "I've told you, I eat at the cafeteria every night. There's no need for you to go to all this trouble for me." It was like this in my past life too. For 30 years, she never took a single bite of the food I cooked. I paused for a moment, my voice calm but firm. "I really want you to try it. Just one bite, okay? After all, this is the first time. And also the last time. I want to bring closure to things for myself." As soon as I finished, I saw Cheng Mukchu's hands hanging by her sides clenched tightly. But she said, "Fine," following orders. Hearing that, my heart gave a sharp, painful pang. Cheng Mukchu is the commander of the 1st Regiment of the Northern Shaanxi Military District, and while I am in a civilian role, my rank is higher than Cheng Mukchu's. That's why in my past life, every time I hoped Cheng Mukchu would do something, she would say, following orders, clearly telling me that the reason she did it was because she had no choice. And not because of love. Cheng Mukchu walked past me with a blank expression. She sat at the table, and a faint scent wafted from her into my nose. I froze, and before I could stop myself, I blurted out, "Did you go to see Lin Ran again today?" No one knew better than me that this scent was from the soap that Cheng Mukchu's childhood sweetheart, Lin Ran, always used. Cheng Mukchu's indifferent expression changed instantly. Her voice turned icy cold. "Did you have someone follow me?" Looking at her sharp, piercing gaze, I felt an inexplicable sorrow. The words that reached my lips were too hard to say. I fell silent for a moment. I said softly, "You've had a long day, get some sleep." With that said, I turned and headed toward the bedroom. To my surprise, Cheng Mukchu followed me in, and I couldn't help but ask, puzzled, "What are you doing?" There was a touch of mockery in Cheng Mukchu's eyes. "Today is the 15th. Didn't you say to get to bed early?" Only then did it hit me. In my past life, Cheng Mukchu was never willing to be intimate with me, so I had to force her. And I set the date for the 15th of every month. My hands behind my back clenched tightly into my palms. There's no need for that anymore. Cheng Mukchu was pushed aside. Standing there, she frowned slightly. "You'd better not be playing hard to get." After saying that, she turned and walked out, heading into the other room. She shut the door. Ever since we got married, Cheng Mukchu had kept a bed in the study, living separately from me. In my past life, I once entered her room in the middle of the night, and ever since then, she started locking the door. Listening to the sound of the lock clicking shut, I curled my lips in self-mockery. "Don't worry, Cheng Mukchu. I won't be that ignorant and overbearing ever again." I turned off the lights, rolled over, and fell into a deep sleep. The next day, I was busy at the military base all morning. At noon, a messenger came to find me, saying my father had arrived. I went to the office, and as I pushed the door open, I saw that Cheng Mukchu was already standing inside. My father didn't even look up. "Sit down. How have you two been lately?" I glanced at Cheng Mukchu, habitually downplaying the trouble. "Dad, we're doing just fine." But then, my father suddenly looked up. His gaze was profound as he looked at Cheng Mukchu. "But I heard that Cheng Mukchu has been visiting a military doctor at the infirmary quite often. Is that true?" Cheng Mukchu's eyes turned cold, and her hands at her sides tightened. The atmosphere in the office became tense and heavy. Cheng Mukchu lowered her gaze, and just as she was about to speak, I said with a smile, "I'm the one who asked her to go." Chang Mukchu froze, her gaze landing on me in shock. I remained calm. That comrade, Lin Ran, lost both her parents and isn't married. So she has it quite tough. I just had Chang Mukchu drop off some things for me. It was my lack of foresight. I never expected such rumors would start spreading. My father was silent for a moment, and I couldn't tell if he believed me or not. He gave a grunt, put down his pen, and stood up. Let's go grab lunch together. Let's head to the cafeteria. Chang Mukchu gave me a long, deep look. But I didn't look at her. I only wanted to avoid any unnecessary trouble before the divorce, before I had settled things with my father. No matter what happened between Chang Mukchu and me, it shouldn't affect my father's reputation. We ate lunch in silence. That afternoon, the three of us went back to our own work. By evening, I didn't go find Chang Mukchu like I used to. After work, I went home alone. I started clearing out my things again, standing there in the living room. My gaze suddenly landed on a pair of ceramic dolls, a man and a woman, on the TV cabinet. I couldn't help but feel a wave of shame. I remember, those were bought when Chang Mukchu and I first got married. I still recall how, after bringing them home, I showed them to her like a treasure, only to be met with eyes full of disdain. These are toys for kids. Why on earth did you buy them? Yet, after Lin Ran came back, Chang Mukchu went out and bought an identical pair. And gave them to him. I swallowed the bitterness and tossed the dolls into my canvas bag. I continued tossing in a few more insignificant things. After clearing out everything inside and out, I weighed the nearly weightless bag in my hand and suddenly realized that in 3 years of marriage to Chang Mukchu, the number of things we shared was pitifully small. Walking out to the yard, I threw the bag into the trash bin. Just as I turned to head back inside, I heard the sound of a car engine cutting off outside. Then, a familiar name filled my ears, followed by Chang Mukchu's cold, clear voice. I can swear that I will never fall in love with him. Otherwise, may I suffer a terrible fate. My face went deathly pale in an instant. But I just stood there quietly, because in my past life, I had seen with my own eyes how Chang Mukchu catered to Lin Ran's every whim and spoiled him at every turn. When Lin Ran was sad, Chang Mukchu would comfort him with soft, gentle words. When Lin Ran was angry, Chang Mukchu would smile and coax him until he was happy. When Lin Ran had a fever, Chang Mukchu would stay up all night to take care of him. So, having lived through this life again, I knew better than anyone that if it weren't for me, Chang Mukchu and Lin Ran would be a perfect match. A story of true love, harmoniously destined, growing old together. In this life, I wouldn't be the villain who broke them apart. I turned and sat at the table, pouring myself a glass of white liquor, not expecting Chang Mukchu to return so soon. She didn't care at all about the glass in front of me, asking coldly, "Since when did you learn to eavesdrop?" I ignored the sarcasm, took a sip of the liquor, and pulled the corner of my mouth into a smile. "Why did you have to make such a harsh oath?" Chang Mukchu looked at me indifferently. "Only when a vow is broken does one face divine retribution. This is the only way to prove that I won't fall for you." Even though I had already decided to let go, hearing those words still felt like my heart had been stabbed viciously. A metallic taste of blood rose in my throat. I squeezed the glass tight. After a long moment, I lifted my hand and downed the drink in one go. Only then saying, "That's good. That way, once the divorce papers are finalized, and he leaves, Chang Mukchu won't have to be heartbroken." Chang Mukchu frowned, feeling that I was acting a bit strange. But she didn't think too much of it and turned to walk toward the bedroom. Upon seeing the water blue shirt in the trash can, her steps faltered. "That shirt, wasn't it your favorite?" I didn't expect Chang Mukchu to remember. I watched her quietly, my eyes showing no real emotion. I casually lied, "I don't like it anymore," so I threw it away. Chang Mukchu didn't ask further. She walked into the house with long strides, and I turned back to the bedroom too. I don't know how much time passed, but it began to rain outside, a light, pattering sound, accompanied by the sound of the rain. I fell asleep not long after. Suddenly, there was a deafening crack of thunder, and the sky lit up with flashes of lightning. I jolted upright in terror, my hands clutching the shirt over my chest tightly. Breathing heavily, I remembered, when I was 10. My mother died in a car accident on a stormy night just like this one. Ever since then, I've been terrified of thunder. Even in my sleep, the sound would startle me awake. Later, after I got married, I would go look for Chang Mukchu whenever it thundered, but that door never once opened for me. Thunder rumbled on, and it wasn't until half an hour later that the storm finally passed. Only then did my trembling subside. I turned on the light, intending to pour myself a glass of water. As I passed through the living room, I took just one look before turning back and returning to my bedroom. Even I was surprised, my heart felt unexpectedly calm, like still water. Perhaps I was truly used to it, but once I lay down, sleep just wouldn't come. I stared at the ceiling for a while, then got up again. I put on my coat and went outside, under the banyan tree in the backyard. I crouched down and dug into the soil for a long time, finally unearthing a glass bottle covered in dirt. The bottle was filled with stars folded from paper strips. Back then, after we got married, I had practically dragged Cheng Mukchu into making them with me. They were filled with my adoration for her, my longing for our little home. Back then, I was incredibly confident that I could make Cheng Mukchu fall in love with me, but reality in my past life dealt me a cruel slap in the face. I opened the bottle and poured out all the paper strips inside. I unfolded them one by one, then clicked my lighter on and burned them one by one. I found the one I love. Her name is Cheng Mukchu. One day, I'm going to marry her. Cheng Mukchu agreed to marry me. I'm finally going to be with her properly. I was so happy I didn't sleep all night. Cheng Mukchu is a bit cold towards me, but that's okay. I believe that one day, I will definitely make her fall in love with me. I watched the flames and the ash. My youthful yearning from back then now is still as water. Behind me, Cheng Mukchu's voice rang out, "What are you burning in the middle of the night?" My eyelashes trembled, but I didn't stop, tossing the very last strip of paper into the fire. Watching the ashes scatter in the wind, I slowly stood up and replied, "Just some useless things." Cheng Mukchu glanced at the glass bottle, feeling like it looked familiar. I knew at a glance that she had no memory of what this bottle originally held. Cheng Mukchu didn't dwell on it and looked away indifferently. Lin Ran had a nightmare, and with the thunder, he got scared, so I went over to check on him. Don't overthink it, and don't give him a hard time. I curled the corner of my mouth. Even at a time like this, she didn't forget to protect Lin Ran. Such favoritism, it's truly enviable. I won't. I tossed the empty bottle aside and headed home. A moment later, Cheng Mukchu followed behind me. We went to our separate rooms, living together but dreaming different dreams. After a few calm days passed, there were only 10 days left until I was to leave. As soon as I arrived at the military base, a soldier walked over and patted me familiarly on the shoulder. "Comrade Ji Yufeng, you're here. Just in time. Little Wu from the Discipline Inspection Department is getting married and is handing out wedding candies. Let's go join in on the fun." That's when memories from my past life suddenly came back to me. It seems little Wu was marrying a company commander from the military region, and we went to the office to have some candy. Little Wu invited everyone to his wedding banquet at noon. Yes, at noon. The wedding was held at a restaurant, and it was packed with people offering their congratulations. My eyes immediately landed on Cheng Mukchu, surrounded by the crowd. She was the groom's superior officer. I should have gone over to offer my blessings, but I didn't look for too long. I started chatting with some other comrades, and I'm not sure how much time had passed. Suddenly, a very loud voice rang out from over there. "Commander Cheng. You're on duty today, aren't you? Can you even drink?" Cheng Mukcho's voice was cool and detached. "I can." I requested leave. Then that person continued, "Commander Cheng, Comrade Lin Ran volunteered to block drinks for the groom. He's only had one glass, and you're already shielding him? You're acting like he's your own man." I paused for a moment. I looked up and saw Cheng Mukchu supporting a dead drunk Lin Ran. The person who spoke had already passed out on the table and was snoring away, but the lively restaurant seemed to freeze for a split second. Everyone looked at me, and a male comrade beside me tugged on my sleeve. "Ji Yufeng. Please, don't take it to heart. He's just drunk." Cheng Mukchu frowned as well, sitting the wobbly Lin Ran down in a chair. It looked like she was about to walk over to explain herself to me. Before she took a step, I smiled. "I know it's just a joke. I won't take it to heart." Cheng Mukchu pulled back the foot she had raised. She looked at me, smiling on the surface, but with not a single ripple in my eyes. She felt a strange, indescribable feeling in her heart. She opened her mouth, wanting to say something more. But behind her, a gasp of alarm rang out. "Comrade Lin Ran. What's wrong?" Cheng Mukchu turned around in a hurry. We saw Lin Ran curled up on the floor, his face turning purple, struggling to breathe. She immediately rushed over, pulled Lin Ran into her arms, and without a hint of hesitation, began gently pressing on his chest. "His asthma is acting up. Call an ambulance." Once Lin Ran calmed down and his breathing stabilized, Cheng Mukchu lifted him up without a second thought. She rushed out without a moment's delay, leaving everyone behind, including me. I watched this scene calmly and didn't say a word. The wedding wrapped up quickly, and I went back to the office. I wrote an application report and then knocked on the commander's office door. "Father, I'm applying to be transferred to Jingbai, to be stationed there permanently." My words rang out clearly and firmly in the commander's office. Father slowly raised his head, his face, still sharp and seasoned, full of gravity. "Transferred to Jingbai? What's the reason? Your wife and your family. Are you just going to abandon them all?" I felt a tightness in my throat. My father and I were never that close, especially after I turned 10 and my mother passed away. On top of his busy schedule, there was so little my father and I could talk about. In my past life, I always felt that my father didn't love me that much. But after I was reborn, I realized that my father had actually used his own favors and standing with Cheng Mukchu. To get Chang Mukchu to marry me, regardless of whether that was right or wrong. Father's only intention was to help me get what I wanted and find the happiness I desired. I took a deep breath. I've filed for a forced divorce. There are 10 days left. The paperwork will be finalized then. A divorce. Dad stood up abruptly. Why are you getting a divorce? Did Chang Mukchu do something to betray you? I gave a bitter laugh. Dad, I know how my marriage with Chang Mukchu came to be. She doesn't have me in her heart. I've already tried my best. I've decided not to waste each other's time anymore. Dad's face was cold and he didn't say a word. I added, I know you're about to be transferred to Jingbai. Why don't we go to Jingbai together, father and son? Wouldn't that be good? Dad's expression shifted slightly. How did you know? Because this is something from my past life. In my last life, after Dad was transferred away, my relationship with Chang Mukchu became even more strained. I didn't say anything, just waited quietly. After a long pause, Dad waved his hand and signed the report. Fine, just don't come crying to me with regrets later. I smiled. I won't. That afternoon, Chang Mukchu and Lin Ran didn't return to the military district. That night, Chang Mukchu didn't come home either. I didn't pay it much mind. Lin Ran's asthma was acting up. With no one else around to look after him, of course Chang Mukchu couldn't bear to leave his side. I went about my usual routine, washing up and resting. The next day after work, I walked home alone. As I passed the movie theater, I suddenly saw a familiar car parked on the side of the road. I paused, and just then, I saw Chang Mukchu opening the passenger door for Lin Ran. Lin Ran saw me first. He was already sitting in the passenger seat, but immediately started to get out. Comrade Gu, you're off work? Perfect. Let's go back together. Please don't get the wrong idea. I had arranged to see a movie with a friend. But my friend had an emergency and I happened to run into Chang Mukchu. So she came to watch it with me instead. In my past life, I used to care so much about these little details, thinking that the passenger seat was a place reserved for Chang Mukchu's husband. I even treated that seat as a symbol of security in our marriage. But now that I've given up on Chang Mukchu herself, why would I care about her passenger seat? Seeing Lin Ran about to get out, I stopped him. It's fine. I didn't think much of it. You don't need to get out, it's too much trouble. I'll just walk back. Chang Mukchu glanced at me. She seemed like she wanted to say something, but I had already turned and walked away. That night, watching Chang Mukchu still working hard in the study, I hesitated for a moment, then knocked on the door to remind her. It's almost 10 o'clock. Aren't you going to rest? Chang Mukchu was very disciplined with her schedule and had never stayed up past 10. But she broke her rule tonight. Chang Mukchu didn't even look up. There's an art performance tomorrow. Lin Ran is in a program and I need to finish all these documents tonight. Otherwise I won't make it to his performance tomorrow. Chang Mukchu said it so naturally. She didn't care at all that the man who came to check on her rest was her own husband. A tightness gripped my chest. As expected, you only prioritize those you love. A fact I already knew from my past life. Why put myself through this again? I nodded. I didn't say another word, turned around, and went back to my room. I crossed off another day on the calendar. 8 days left, until the divorce is finalized and I leave with my father for North Beijing. The cultural performance was the next morning, but I didn't go. I honestly didn't think I'd see Chang Mukchu today either, but then at noon, after lunch, I had just returned to the office from the cafeteria when Chang Mukchu walked over. She sounded irritated. Did my father talk to you yesterday afternoon about the 218 coal mine case? The killer fled to Lincheng. Was it you who blocked my father from sending me to Lincheng to assist in the investigation? Chang Mukchu's father was murdered years ago in that unresolved 218 coal mine case. That's why she's been so obsessed with it, but she doesn't know the killer escaped to Lincheng. And she doesn't know about her father's orders. Just as I was about to speak, I saw the usually proud Chang Mukchu staring intensely at me. How could you trap me here just for your own selfish reasons? Nobody understands that killer better than I do. I have to go to Lincheng. The image flashed before my eyes of 3 years ago, Chang Mukchu's mother, on her deathbed, begging me in agony. Ji Yufeng, my Mukchu is too obsessed. I'm afraid that in her quest to avenge her father, she'll disregard her own safety. Please, I beg you, watch over her. Mom, I promise you, I won't let her do anything reckless. Pulling myself back to reality, I hardened my voice. This has nothing to do with me. Who goes to Lincheng is a decision made by our superiors. You are a soldier. You must obey orders. Chang Mukchu clenched her hands, her voice cold. Acting like this only makes me despise you even more. I gasped for air, but I didn't say another word. That afternoon, I was completely distracted. Suddenly, a knock at the office door. I looked up and saw Lin Ran walk in. Lin Ran was wearing a simple white shirt, looking crisp and clean. Tall and handsome, I thought to myself. No wonder Chang Mukchu hasn't been able to let him go all these years. I pulled myself together. Comrade Lin, is there something you need? Lin Ran quickly looked up at me, then suddenly knelt on the floor, bowing his head heavily to the ground. Comrade Gu, I'm here to beg you. Chang Mukchu really wants to catch her father's killer herself. Can you really not care at all about her deepest wish? I beg you, let her go to Lincheng. I stood up, my expression shifting instantly. The whereabouts of the 218 killer are classified. How do you know about this? Did you eavesdrop on a meeting of the superiors? Lin Ran's pleading stopped abruptly. His face turned deathly pale in an instant. Under my piercing gaze, he stuttered, not knowing how to respond. That was when Chang Mukchu walked in. She looked at me with a cold, dark face, helped Lin Ran up, and glared at me with a hatred and disgust I had never seen before. Gu Feng, how could you make him kneel? You're using your official rank to bully others. Lin Ran's eyes welled with tears. Mukchu, it's my fault. Don't argue with Comrade Gu on my account. Chang Mukchu turned her head, her voice turning instantly gentle as she spoke to him. Don't be afraid, I'm here. Watching this scene, I felt as if my heart had been brutally pierced by a blade. I clenched my fists to steady myself and asked firmly, do you even know what kind of crime he just committed? He eavesdropped on a classified meeting, according to the law. Before I could finish, Chang Mukchu interrupted me in a low, heavy voice, no matter the crime. I am willing to take the blame for him. I stood there, stunned and disbelieving. For the first time, I felt a surge of anger. Looking at the deep, undying devotion in her eyes, my heart swelled with an indescribable, stinging ache. Chang Mukchu, are you really throwing away your entire future for him? Chang Mukchu froze. After a moment of silence, she spoke. He risked eavesdropping only because of me. When it comes down to it, it's all my fault. Back when I married you, I already let him down once. I can't let him suffer any more grievances. I clenched my fists tightly, trying to force myself to stay calm. But I couldn't stop the sudden, stabbing pain in my chest. I closed my eyes. My voice couldn't hide my disappointment. I will pretend today never happened. As for the transfer to Lincheng, I will talk to Dad about it. You all can leave now. Chang Mukchu looked at me with a hint of confusion, but still worried about Lin Ran's knee. She turned and left with him, watching their backs fade away. I wiped away the tears welling in my eyes and muttered to myself, soon. You won't have to let him down anymore. I took a deep breath, picked up the phone and called Dad. That evening, I was waiting for Chang Mukchu to return. As soon as she walked through the door, I said, the orders from headquarters are in. In 7 days you are to head to Lincheng to assist their military district with the case. Chang Mukchu paused, seemingly surprised that I had actually helped her. She nodded. Thank you. I nodded silently, and got up to go to my room. This afternoon, I had already gone to the station and bought a long-distance train ticket to the capital. 7 days later, Chang Mukchu will go to Lincheng, and I will leave for Jingbai. We are returning to our own paths, going our separate ways. I pulled out my suitcase and started packing. I put my clothes, certificates, and medals into the case. As for what I left behind, apart from the clothes I needed for the next 2 days, there was almost no trace of me left in this house. Just as I pressed the lock on the suitcase and lifted it, a hand suddenly grabbed my wrist. Where are you going? I was a bit startled. Was the look of panic and nervousness on Chang Mukchu's face real? She only ever got nervous for Lin Ran. I became even calmer. I just felt the house was a bit cluttered. So I was tidying up some clothes I don't wear anymore. As I said that, I pointed to the bag beside me. I also sorted out some of the clothes you don't wear. Those were all clothes I had once bought for Chang Mukchu, but she hadn't even glanced at them. Since she didn't like them, I might as well clear them out. Chang Mukchu paused, feeling strange in her heart, wondering why she was so worried that I might leave. She regained her composure, let go of my hand, and her expression turned cold again. I wanted to tell you. Lin Ran has applied to be the accompanying military doctor and will be going with me. He has a good relationship with my father, and he wants to see me catch the culprit with his own eyes. Don't overthink it. I hesitated for a long time before replying, if you take him with you. Aren't you afraid something might happen to him? Chang Mukchu didn't hesitate at all. I will protect him, and not let him come to any harm. Hearing this, I couldn't help but laugh at myself in my heart. Yes, of course. How could she ever let anything happen to Lin Ran? He was the person she cared about most. I lowered my eyes and turned my back, telling myself I was going to sleep. But I didn't hear Chang Mukchu's footsteps leaving behind me, and I felt a strange urge to look back. Before I could even turn my head, Chang Mukchu suddenly lunged into my arms. My heart skipped a beat. What are you doing? Her breath was hot, but what she said next made me feel like I had been plunged into an ice cellar. I know you're furious. As long as you don't make things difficult for Lin Ran, I can help you. In that instant, it was as if I'd been scalded. I shoved Chang Mukchu away forcefully. What do you take me for? Chang Mukchu remained expressionless, her eyes completely devoid of any affection. I felt utterly humiliated, so I pushed her out and slammed the door shut. Leaning against the door panel, I felt as though my heart was being carved to pieces. In the days that followed, I stayed busy with preparations for my departure. 5 days passed quickly, and it was 2 days before I was supposed to leave. The transfer orders for my father and me to go to Jingbai had already come down. After clearing out my office, I hesitated for a long time, but eventually took a bulletproof vest and went to find Cheng Mukchu. That killer is ruthless and dangerous, and he has a gun. You must be careful. In my past life, I had given her many gifts. This one would be the very last gift I ever gave her. Cheng Mukchu took it casually and said coldly, thanks. She didn't even bother to take a second look. I pressed my thin lips together, and suddenly spotted that there was already a bulletproof vest sitting on her desk. I was stunned. You've already prepared one? No sooner had the words left my lips than I saw a flicker of softness in Cheng Mukcho's eyes. Comrade Lin Ran prepared it for me. My eyes dimmed. I see. I was overstepping. After a moment of silence, I remembered something. Let's have dinner tomorrow night. It will be our last meal together. Cheng Mukchu furrowed her brows, about to say it wasn't necessary. But at that moment, meeting my gaze, she didn't know why. But she found she couldn't bring herself to refuse, thinking about how I had pleaded to let her go to Lincheng this time. She pressed her lips tight and said, all right. The next day, the final day before I was to leave, that evening, I made dumplings at home. As the saying goes, dumplings for the departure, noodles for the arrival. May the road ahead be safe. Both Cheng Mukchu and I deserved to head safely toward our own separate futures. When Cheng Mukchu returned, she said for the first time, you're very thoughtful. I smiled, brought over 2 small dishes of garlic sauce, and said, come, sit and eat. They're freshly boiled. I remember you like them piping hot. Hearing this, Cheng Mukchu seemed a bit surprised. In 3 years of marriage, we had barely ever eaten a meal together. Most of the time it was with my father. Other than eating at the military canteen, the only other time was having dumplings together during the new year. She hadn't expected that I would actually remember her preferences. She sat down at the table, picked one up, and put it in her mouth. She said, somewhat unnaturally, it's delicious. I didn't say a word. I never expected that the first meal we ate alone together would be like this. Just as I was about to say something, the landline phone on the sofa side table rang. Cheng Mukchu stood up to answer it. After hanging up, she took a look at me. She grabbed the luggage she had packed by the door and said, there's an urgent matter at the military district. I need to go handle it. I won't be back tonight. I'll be catching a ride early tomorrow morning. Don't wait up for me, just go to sleep. With that, she opened the door and hurried off. I looked at the dumpling she had only taken one bite of in her bowl, and my lips curled into a bitter smile. I continued eating as if nothing happened, waiting for her. But long ago, I had already stopped waiting for her. I finished all the dumplings by myself, then washed and dried all the bowls and plates. I put everything back in its place, and in this house, I spent my final night. At 6 in the morning, I opened my eyes and saw the beautiful, sunny weather outside. I felt surprisingly great. A bright, involuntary smile tugged at my lips. I made myself some breakfast, ate it slowly, and then took the last 2 pieces of clothing from my closet and packed them into my suitcase. Then, I pulled the forced divorce papers from the bottom drawer and placed them in the most visible spot on the desk. Once the 15 days were up, our marriage would be automatically dissolved. The words of the official echoed in my ears. I picked up my suitcase, opened the door, and was just about to leave when I saw 2 familiar figures at the entrance of the military compound, getting into a green jeep together. It was Cheng Mukchu and Lin Ran. It seems last night, it wasn't the military district that had an issue. It was Lin Ran who needed her. Beyond her official duty, she was doing everything she could to be by his side. I watched the jeep drive away, smiled in relief, then turned around and closed the door. I walked away from the home I shared with Cheng Mukchu, step by step, leaving this place that no longer held any trace of me. Just as I reached the gate of the military compound, another jeep pulled up. The window rolled down. It was my father. All packed? Get in. I nodded and said, yes. The jeep headed toward the train station. At 8:20, 2 trains started moving from the station at the same time. One, heading from North Shaanxi to North Beijing. The other, heading from North Shaanxi to Lincheng. They were headed in different directions. From this moment on, we would part ways, never to cross paths again. Through the window, I saw Cheng Mukchu and Lin Ran on the other train. My lips moved silently. Goodbye. On the other side, Cheng Mukchu suddenly felt a strange tug at her heart. She turned her head to look, but only caught a glimpse of the back of the speeding train. Cheng Mukchu suddenly felt a sense of unease, though she couldn't say why. And for some reason, she unexpectedly thought of me. Why am I thinking about him? Cheng Mukchu held her head and shook it. Beside her, Lin Ran noticed and asked in confusion, Mukchu? What's wrong? Cheng Mukchu pulled back her gaze, lowered her head, and replied, it's nothing. I was just thinking about the culprit. That's right. Right now, nothing is more important than catching the killer who harmed the 3 fathers. Cheng Mukcho's expression became resolute. Cheng Mukcho's mission in Lincheng was progressing quite smoothly. She had been researching the 218 coal mine case for years, and it was true, just as she had said, that no one understood the killer better than she did. Because she had joined the investigation, the military district managed to achieve twice the result with half the effort, and the culprit was successfully brought to justice. After so many years, she finally waited for this very moment. Watching the murderer being pushed into the police car, Cheng Mukchu barely held back her tears. Yet her eyes still turned red. Lin Ran stood by, congratulating her that her great revenge had finally been fulfilled. But for some reason, at that very instant, my face actually appeared in her mind. Cheng Mukchu quickly shook her head to cast that unusual thought out of her mind. It must be because Ji Yufeng helped her with this mission, which is why she thought of him at a time like this. After the operation ended, neither Cheng Mukchu nor Lin Ran lingered any longer. They boarded the train back to northern Shaanxi, and it was already evening by the time they arrived. Cheng Mukchu didn't even have time to go home, she prepared to go straight to the cemetery. Lin Ran looked at her with concern. Cheng Mukchu, let me go with you. But Cheng Mukchu didn't want him to run around after her anymore. His health wasn't great to begin with. If something else happens, it won't be good. No need, Lin Ran. You take the jeep back first, the cemetery is quite far. Don't wear yourself out following me around. With that, she called over the driver and handed him Lin Ran's suitcase. Lin Ran knew she must have a lot of things she wanted to pour out. He wanted to stay by her side, but she was unwilling. He had no choice but to let it be, getting into the jeep and driving away. Cheng Mukchu borrowed a vintage bicycle and pedaled her way to the cemetery. Her father and mother were buried together. Cheng Mukchu brought 2 bouquets of flowers up the mountain. She had assumed there wouldn't be anyone at the cemetery at this hour, but unexpectedly, she saw someone from a distance standing with their back to her. Standing before her parents' headstones, Cheng Mukchu stepped forward. She called out, "Uncle Duan." The man didn't turn his head. He only replied, "You've come." Uncle Duan was a good brother of her parents. He was also one of the few survivors of the 218 coal mine case. After her father passed, he also looked after her quite a bit. It wasn't until later, when she started her own family and became a regiment commander, that Uncle Duan focused on his own family. She had intended to go and send word to Uncle Duan later. But she hadn't expected his information to be so prompt. He had arrived at the cemetery one step ahead of her. Cheng Mukchu placed the flowers in front of the graves respectively, and after wiping the headstones clean, she stood up. She heard Uncle Duan speak. "I had originally thought that in this lifetime, I would never see the culprit brought to justice. I didn't expect that Cheng Mukchu would be so capable after all. The net of heaven has large meshes, but it lets nothing through. He did wrong, and he would eventually be punished." Uncle Duan let out a soft sigh. "But I didn't expect that kid Ji Yufeng would actually let you go to Lin City. After all, your mother told him to look after you when she was passing on. When I heard you were going to Lin City, I was surprised for a long time. Now it seems he had confidence in your abilities. It was just me worrying too much." It was as if a clap of thunder exploded in her ears. It took Cheng Mukchu a long while to find her voice again. "Uncle Duan, are you saying that before my mother passed away?" Uncle Duan suddenly realized, "Hasn't Ji Yufeng told you? Before your mother passed, she was afraid you would do something foolish, and entrusted him to look after you. No wonder he didn't want her to go to Lin City." It turns out there was this layer of connection. But why didn't he say anything? At the thought of what she had said to him at the time, Cheng Mukchu bit her red lips. It was she who had misunderstood him. Although she didn't like him, she still owed him an apology. She hurriedly said goodbye to Uncle Duan and headed in the direction of home. On the way, she passed by a small stall selling candied hawthorn sticks. She remembered that I really liked to eat them. I just picked one up on my way back home. Cheng Mukchu pushed the door open, feeling a bit uneasy, but the room was completely empty. It was cold and quiet. One look was enough to tell that I wasn't there. "Ji Yufeng?" She called out twice, but there was no answer. She was just wondering where he could be at this hour. Suddenly, Cheng Mukchu's eyes locked onto the mandatory divorce papers on the desk. The candied hawthorn fell from her hand, rolling across the floor for a few turns. It ended up covered in dust. Cheng Mukchu stared at the paper as if she had forgotten how to read. She was stunned for a moment, and it took a long time to process that I had actually applied for a mandatory divorce. But why? Back then, he was so insistent on marrying her. He even had his father use a past favor to force her into the marriage, and now he's pulling this? Is this some kind of game of hard to get? Cheng Mukchu couldn't put a name to the feeling in her heart right now. Acting on impulse, she pushed open my bedroom door, still finding it hard to believe. But as she looked inside, the room was completely empty. All his personal belongings were gone. For a split second, Cheng Mukchu felt a sense of relief. But there was also a hidden, quiet sadness in her heart. Maybe she was just regretting not being able to apologize for her own behavior. That's what she told herself as she picked up the candied hawthorn and tossed it into the trash. She went back to her room, but no matter how she lay in bed, she couldn't fall asleep. She felt an unexplainable agitation. The next day, early in the morning, Cheng Mukchu heard someone knocking at the door. She opened it to find Lin Ran standing there. She realized she felt inexplicably disappointed. But who was she hoping it would be? She didn't know either. Lin Ran handed over a plate of steamed buns he was holding. With a warm smile, he said, "Cheng Mukchu, these are some buns I just made. Fresh out of the steamer. Come on, have a taste." Cheng Mukchu took one to try. "How is it?" Lin Ran asked, his eyes sparkling with anticipation. "It's good." Lin Ran smiled. He wanted to put the rest of the buns on the table, but caught sight of the divorce application sitting there. He froze for a moment, then turned back to look at her in shock. "Cheng Mukchu, this is, Ji Yu Feng divorced me." Her tone was calm, as if she were talking about something as ordinary as whether the bun tasted good. Lin Ran couldn't hide the joy on his face. He set the plate down and grabbed her hand. "I finally waited for this day, Mukchu. Back then, you had to marry Ji Yu Feng because of your father's debt of gratitude. Now that he's applied for a divorce, we can finally be together." The man in front of her was so excited that his voice was trembling slightly. Cheng Mukchu patted his back lightly and said, "Yeah," but a strange feeling flickered in her heart. The morning's little episode didn't last long, as both of them had to head to work. Upon arriving at the military district, Cheng Mukchu went straight to her father's office. She didn't know if he was aware of my mandatory divorce. She also didn't know what his stance was, but at the very least, she felt she needed to go and give someone an explanation. As it turned out, when she pushed open the office door, she found it empty. He had left too. A look of shock flashed across Cheng Mukchu's face. The strange feeling in her heart grew stronger. Why did both of them leave without saying goodbye? "Comrade Cheng, are you looking for Commander Ji Yu?" A colleague's voice came from behind. She turned around, and before she could even speak, the colleague continued, "Commander Ji Yu and Comrade Ji Yu Feng have both been transferred to Jingbai. How strange. Why didn't you go with them?" Cheng Mukchu didn't answer. She brushed past him and returned to her own office. She was lost in thought for a long time, unable to understand why she felt so despondent. This was a good thing for her. She no longer had to share a room with someone she didn't love. And she no longer had to worry about her father's debt of gratitude, yet why did it feel like there was a void in her heart? For the next few days, Cheng Mukchu forced herself not to think about Ji Yu Feng. At the same time, Lin Ran suggested that they get back together. Cheng Mukchu thought to herself that she had let him down once back then. She couldn't let him down a second time, so she agreed. But while discussing the arrangements, she would always subconsciously think of Ji Yu Feng. And as the day to register their marriage drew closer, the number of times she thought of him only increased. Sometimes, she even wondered what expression Ji Yu Feng would have if he heard the news. Would he be sad? Or would he not care at all? The thought that he might not care at all caused her heart to ache for a fleeting moment. Once she realized what she was feeling, she thought she must be losing her mind. They were already divorced. What did any of this have to do with him anyway? Returning from another military district gathering, Cheng Mukchu and Lin Ran had a bit to drink, and the air suddenly froze. Both of them wore expressions of pure disbelief. Lin Ran tried to say something, but Cheng Mukchu didn't give him the chance to speak and beat him to it, saying her goodbyes. She locked herself in her room, sitting blankly and staring at the moonlight outside the window. She couldn't believe that she had actually called out Ji Yu Feng's name at a time like that. But the strange feeling in her heart kept intensifying, and the events of recent days kept flooding into her mind. She began to ponder the reason, just sitting there in a daze until dawn. She arrived at a conclusion that shocked her to the core. She had fallen in love with Ji Yu Feng. Even though she didn't want to admit it, it was the truth. Otherwise, there was no way to explain the despondency she had felt lately. Having figured it all out, Cheng Mukchu felt. She clutched her head in confusion. She had actually fallen in love with Ji Yu Feng? How could she have fallen for him? She clearly hated him so much. No, she had to see him to be sure of all this. Cheng Mukchu sat up all night, and as soon as dawn broke, she went to the military district to ask for leave. Then, she bought a train ticket to Jingbai and left immediately. 12 hours later, in Jingbai, Commander Gu's home wasn't hard to find. One just had to ask someone familiar with him. After she arrived and knocked on the door, she didn't see Ji Yu Feng. There was only Commander Ji Yu, who didn't seem very happy to see her. "Cheng Mukchu, why are you here?" Cheng Mukchu bit her lip. "Father, why did you leave without saying a word to me? I wanted to see Ji Yu Feng." Her father's expression was grim. "Ji Yu Feng is not in Jingbai. It's a secret transfer from the higher-ups. I have nothing to tell you. You should go. You and Ji Yu Feng are already divorced. Don't come here again." Cheng Mukchu blocked her father's attempt to close the door. "Please, just tell me. Otherwise, I will keep waiting here." Her father gave her a strange look. Suit yourself then. He shut the door. He couldn't be bothered with someone who only knew how to cherish things after losing them. He left her standing outside, not believing she would stay for long. He went back to drinking his tea and reading the paper, undisturbed. Night fell. Dad was getting ready for bed when he noticed Cheng Mukchu was still standing at the door. If you knew it would come to this, why act like that back then? He scoffed coldly. He pulled the curtains shut. Having stood there for hours, Cheng Mukcho's legs were completely numb, but she couldn't give up. This was the only chance she had to see Ji Yufeng. She had to see him. To beg for his forgiveness. Deep into the night, a sudden crack of thunder shook the sky, and a torrential downpour began to fall. Cheng Mukchu was instantly soaked to the bone, yet she still didn't move. She let the heavy rain pour down, but gradually, she felt her consciousness fading, and everything before her eyes began to spin. Then, she collapsed straight to the ground. After losing consciousness, Cheng Mukchu had a dream. Don't cook for me, don't touch my things. She watched a man with eyes full of cold disdain. The man hunched over, cleaning up a meal that no one had touched. Cheng Mukchu froze. Where is this? Why does the person in front of her have the same face as her? Yet look so incredibly aged, with a gaze that made her feel deeply uncomfortable? She tried to step closer to see who the man was, and just then, he turned his head. Cheng Mukchu was stunned for a moment. It was actually Ji Yufeng. But the person before her was hunched over, his face withered. And his eyes completely devoid of light. Is this really me? Why did Ji Yufeng end up like this? No one gave her an answer. The scenes before her kept shifting, but what never changed was her own cold expression in Ji Yufeng's dejected face. It felt as if she had lived out her entire life in that dream. She opened her eyes the moment Ji Yufeng faded away, unable to collect herself for a long time. How could she have treated Ji Yufeng like that? Was it because Ji Yufeng was so determined to divorce her that he had experienced the same dream? She woke up. The commander's voice echoed in her ear. Cheng Mukchu froze for a second, before realizing she was in a hospital. Tell me, why put yourself through this? When Ji Yufeng was here, you didn't cherish him. He left with a broken heart. And now you come to me, making such a scene. I chose you to marry Ji Yufeng back then because of your character. But I never expected it to end like this. Cheng Mukchu propped herself up. I'm sorry, Dad. I have failed your expectations. Please, tell me where Ji Yufeng has gone. Let me have a chance to make up for my mistakes. Dad sighed helplessly. Seeing that she was truly remorseful, he told her where Ji Yufeng was. It turned out that just 2 days after Ji Yufeng returned to Jingbai, he received a direct transfer order from his superiors to go to the Hexi research base to develop new weaponry. As a researcher with professional grade 1 qualifications, Ji Yufeng had no reason to refuse. Besides, it was an honor that the country valued him, so he went straight to Hexi. Now that Cheng Mukchu knew where he was, she didn't linger any longer. She returned to Shanbei to make some final arrangements. The first thing she had to do was make her intentions clear to Lin Ran. When Lin Ran heard her, he looked at her in disbelief, his voice cracking with agony. Cheng Mukchu, what kind of joke is this? You're saying you won't marry me and you're going to find Ji Yufeng? You like him? How could you possibly fall for him? Cheng Mukchu tried to calm him down. I'm sorry, but feelings aren't something I can control. I've searched my heart, and I truly cannot marry you. It would be a waste of your time, but how could this even be happening? Lin Ran still found it hard to believe. Cheng Mukchu usually treated Ji Yufeng like a total stranger. How could she possibly like him? I know this might be hard for you to take in right now. Whatever compensation you want, I will make it up to you. Lin Ran left in tears. To make sure she wouldn't regret her decision, Cheng Mukchu still stuffed some money and vouchers into his hands. She also reached out to acquaintances at the military district, asking them to look after Lin Ran. After settling matters with Lin Ran, the second thing Cheng Mukchu did was go to the cemetery to say goodbye to her parents. She didn't know when she would be able to return. The third thing was to explain the situation to Uncle Duan and give him some money and vouchers as well. She thanked him for his years of care, then resolutely submitted her application. She requested a transfer to the base as a sentry. Sitting on the train, Cheng Mukchu suddenly remembered that trip to Lincheng. At that time, was Ji Yufeng on the train opposite hers? Her heart stirred. Clutching the address of the base, she whispered to herself, Ji Yufeng, I'm coming to find you. 8 hours later, Hexi base. Cheng Mukchu followed the address and found the base. From a distance, she caught sight of a familiar figure. 3 days ago, when I landed in Hexi, a strong wind kicked up just then, and the overwhelming yellow sand stung my eyes. When the dust settled, the true face of this city was finally revealed. It was vast and sparsely populated. As far as the eye could see, there was only sand and wind. Sparse trees were scattered across the land, looking half dead and lifeless. This only added to the city's sense of desolation. As soon as I left the airport, I saw A female soldier waiting to receive him. He picked up his suitcase and walked over. The person opposite him saluted first. "Are you Comrade Ji Feng?" He returned the salute. "I am." "Hello, comrade. My name is Zhao Xiaotong, you can call me Xiao Zhao." She gave a brief introduction, and as she led him forward, she explained the upcoming arrangements. "The organization sent me to pick you up. We will head to your quarters to get you settled, then take you to get familiar with the research institute and meet Commander Liu." I nodded and said, "Sounds good." By the time they finished talking, they had already reached a military vehicle. Zhao Xiaotong put my suitcase in the trunk and opened the back door for me to get in. I didn't stand on ceremony. I thanked her and sat inside. The vehicle carried him forward. I leaned my head against the window, looking at the scenery, while thinking about my upcoming tasks. The Star Corps Research Base is a top-secret national research facility. They study new types of weapons there, and as a level 1 professional researcher, I should have been here from the start. But because my father couldn't bear to see me suffer, and because I had married Cheng Mukchu, I stayed in northern Shaanxi. Before coming here, I had undergone countless background checks and signed a confidentiality agreement. While the chance to serve the country and pursue my own value excited me, my anticipation was still laced with a secret unease. Zhao Xiaotong noticed I had been staring out the window, looking a bit down. So she took the initiative to chat with me. "Don't let our small, rugged environment fool you. But everyone at the base is really easy to get along with." I was taken aback for a moment. It only dawned on me then that Zhao Xiaotong might think he didn't like it here. He chuckled softly. "I actually think this place is great. I heard you were stationed at the Shanbei military region before. The environment there was much better than this little place, and the work was a lot more relaxed. What made you decide to come to such a remote, out-of-the-way spot?" Zhao Xiaotong seemed genuinely puzzled. After finishing, he even let out a light sigh. I watched as the vehicle drove through another canyon. I spoke up with a sense of admiration. "But this place is the heart of our nation's development. Shouldn't our lives be dedicated to work like this?" Zhao Xiaotong froze. Perhaps not knowing how to respond to that, he lowered his head. He didn't say anything else. I pressed my lips together, feeling that my tone might have sounded a bit too self-righteous. They are only responsible for protecting the base and the researchers. They probably don't even know what is being researched inside, and once they come in, they might never be able to leave. Of course they would envy the leisurely and free work outside. My comment really felt like I was imposing my own morality on him. I spoke up, trying to explain, "That's not what I meant." Zhao Xiaotong looked as if he didn't understand why I was apologizing. A bit stunned, he replied, "I didn't misunderstand anything. I just think Comrade Gu has a very high level of ideological awareness. It's something we should all learn from." That caught me off guard. I lowered my head, feeling flustered, and felt a flush of heat creeping up to my ears. Getting praised for my ideological awareness on the first day we met just felt so awkward. For the rest of the time, neither of us spoke. The vehicle soon carried us both to the research base. The guard checked his luggage and took the transit pass from Zhao Xiaotong's hand. I was just about to ask Zhao Xiaotong if he wanted to walk over himself or if she should drive him there, when we heard the guard say unexpectedly, "I'm sorry, you two can't go in." "What?" Two cries of disbelief rang out at the same time. I spoke up to inquire. "I was transferred here. I have an official order. Why can't we enter?" "We don't know anything about any transfer orders. We only recognize the pass. This pass of hers is expired. You can't come in." My questioning gaze shifted from the guards face to Zhao Xiaotong's. Zhao Xiaotong scratched her head in embarrassment. She hadn't used the pass when she went out this morning, and she hadn't realized she'd grabbed the wrong one in her haste. She'd picked up an expired one. Hearing her say that, I smiled helplessly. "What do we do now?" Zhao Xiaotong said to the guard. "Could you please report this to Commander Liu? Just tell him Comrade Ji Feng has arrived." The guard didn't make things difficult for us and went to report it. Before long, someone came to meet us. However, the person who arrived wasn't Commander Liu, but Ku Tongzhou, the manager of the research building. Commander Liu manages the entire research base and is the supreme leader here. Ku Tongzhou is the second in command, right under him, and the manager of the research building. He is also another one of the professional Tier 1 researchers here. He spoke a few words to the guard, and the two of us were let through. Ku Tongzhou just briefly greeted the two of us and left. He seemed like a very busy man. I stared at his back, lost in thought, when I heard Zhao Xiaotong speak up from the side. "Comrade Ku is just like that. They all jokingly call him a research fanatic. He probably just ran off to get back to his research. It doesn't mean he isn't welcoming to you." I hadn't thought too much into it, but hearing Zhao Xiaotong's slightly comforting explanation, I naturally continued the conversation. "You're very familiar with the people here, aren't you?" "Not really." She seemed to know everyone here. I couldn't help but secretly admire Zhao Xiaotong's social skills. I followed her toward my new living quarters as it wasn't very far. Zhao Xiaotong asked the others to return the vehicle to the administration office, and she walked me there instead. I looked at the walls inscribed with slogans like "We must catch up to and surpass the world's advanced levels, self-reliance," and "hard work and perseverance," feeling deeply moved in my heart. When we reached the residence, Zhao Xiaotong handed the keys to Comrade Gu. "This is your place. See what you might be missing later and come find me. Would you like to tidy up the room first, or go meet Commander Lu and get familiar with the base?" Without a second thought, I gave my answer, "Let's go meet Commander Lu first." So, I opened the door, set my suitcase inside and I followed Zhao Xiaotong out again. She couldn't enter the commander's office, so she waited for me downstairs. I went in and gave a brief report. After listening to the commander's encouragement and expectations, I headed back downstairs. Zhao Xiaotong was standing there waiting for me. Seeing me come down, she immediately walked over. "Comrade Gu, is everything settled? If so, let me show you around the base." I nodded and the two of us began to wander through the research facility. As we walked, Zhao Xiaotong introduced the place. "This is the cafeteria. You can have your breakfast, lunch, and dinner here. This over here is the boiler room. They provide hot water," pointing to the most imposing building in the complex. Her eyes filled with a hint of admiration as she said, "This is the research building. It's where you'll be working, but we can't go in there right now. Someone should come by tonight to give you your work permit and explain the relevant procedures." I followed her gaze, looked up, and nodded. After the tour, Zhao Xiaotong filled me in on other details. Since this place is quite far from the city, someone is assigned to go out and handle purchases. Whenever you need something, just submit a request, and they'll buy it for you. If there's anything else you're unsure about, just come find me. She gave me a long list of instructions, all of which I noted down. I thanked her, my feelings of fondness for her rising sharply. Looking out at this vast, endless land, I sighed to myself. From now on, I will live here, carrying my ideals, ambitions, and expectations for my future life. 3 months later, I was once again locked in a fierce argument with Ku Tongzhou over our work. Neither of us was willing to back down. I told him, this approach lacks scientific logic, it's impossible for it to succeed. It's a complete waste of time and resources. How do you know it won't succeed if you haven't even tried? Besides, the direction we've been following is already a dead end. Why not try something new? We had argued like this over 100 times in just these 3 months. We were both deeply dedicated to our research, and both possessed solid professional skills. But our research perspectives simply didn't align. I was bold enough to experiment, willing to propose new plans, and eager to innovate. Ku Tongzhou was more conservative and unwilling to attempt any method he deemed too risky. He felt it was a waste of resources and time, and this time was no different. I proposed a new research direction, but Ku Tongzhou disagreed, arguing that it lacked scientific basis and that relying solely on my own deductions was unreliable. But I felt there was a high chance of success, and since our current research wasn't making progress anyway, why not change directions and give it a shot? And so, neither of us would give an inch. The standoff lasted until lunchtime, when a colleague hurriedly pulled him aside. "All right, Comrade Gu. Eating is important. Let's go eat first." I wanted to say I was already too full from the anger, but I knew they were just trying to help. So I didn't say anything else and followed him to the canteen. I took out my meal ticket and got some food, but I didn't really have much of an appetite. My mind was filled with how to get Ku Tongzhou to agree to this plan. My colleague looked at me and gave a helpless laugh. "Stop thinking about it, Comrade Gu. If you keep dwelling on it, your food will get cold. Tell me, you two. You're both the most brilliant researchers, so how did you end up with the exact same stubborn temper? In private, you're both so easygoing, but when it comes to work, neither of you will give an inch." Listening to his sigh, I also let out a helpless breath. I, too, wondered why Ku Tongzhou, who was usually so accommodating in private, was so rigid when it came to work. I was eating absent-mindedly when I heard my colleague ask, "Comrade Gu, did you ask the procurement team to bring anything back for you? Today is the day they return." I was taken aback. I had completely forgotten that Zhao Xiaotong and the others were coming back today. He nodded faintly, and then heard a surprised voice from across the table. "This is the first time I've seen you nod about this." I let out a light laugh at his words. It was true that I rarely asked for anything to be bought. Even though Zhao Xiaotong always came to ask me before she left, I never asked her to bring anything back, and I hadn't asked for anything this time either. I only asked them to bring me a ball of yarn and some knitting needles. First, because the weather was freezing, I wanted to knit a scarf, a hat, and gloves to keep warm. Second, I also wanted to knit a pair of gloves for Zhao Xiaotong, to thank her for taking care of me for so long. I didn't have much to give people, so I could only knit a few things myself to express my gratitude. Reminded by my colleague, I didn't forget this time. After work, I went to the gate to wait for the supply truck. However, I didn't expect the supply truck to be delayed, and I had to wait a long time for it to arrive. I followed the others to line up and wait for the supplies to be distributed. The person on the truck checked the items one by one against the list. Found my things and handed them to me. I checked to make sure nothing was missing, thanked the person, and turned to leave, but then I heard a familiar voice calling my name. Ji Feng. His body stiffened. My mind immediately realized it sounded like Cheng Mukchu. I turned around and, sure enough, saw her wearing a military overcoat. Calling to me amidst the crowd. I didn't know how Cheng Mukchu knew my location, or why she appeared here, but I didn't want to have any more dealings with her. So, I turned and walked away without stopping. Seeing that I treated her like a stranger, a wave of sharp pain surged from the bottom of Cheng Mukchu's heart. She immediately lifted her feet, intending to chase after me, but was blocked by the person she was with. Comrade Cheng, what are you doing? The distribution task here isn't finished yet. Once it's over, we still need to return the vehicles. They rattled off a long list of tasks, which gave Cheng Mukchu a headache. But being pulled away by them, she couldn't escape, and I had long since disappeared from her sight. Cheng Mukchu sighed, thinking she would just have to find Ji Feng later. Besides, since she had been transferred here, there would be plenty of opportunities to see him. On the other hand, I didn't pay any mind to Cheng Mukchu's arrival at all. It was as if I had seen a total stranger. It had no impact on me whatsoever. I returned to my room and started my knitting. The stove in the room had already been lit, and the fire was burning brightly, making the whole room feel cozy and warm. On my usual days off, I would stay in my room alone and read. I occasionally go out for a stroll, but it's been so freezing lately that he hasn't even had the heart to step outside. Now that he's got the yarn in hand, he can finally start crocheting. He sets to work, following the pattern in his memory. The yarn and hook dance between his fingers, and before long, the shape of a pair of gloves begins to emerge. His hands never stop moving, but his mind is busy thinking about other things. He's thinking that come next spring, when the weather warms up, he wants to explore the area more. They say the nearby grottos are a true marvel. He has always been in awe of the ancient artisans and deeply curious about their incredible carving skills. He's been planning to go see them when he has the time. After being here for a few months, he has already figured out all the rules and regulations. Outsiders need to go through several tedious procedures to get a permit, but the research base doesn't place too many restrictions on their movements. You just have to submit an application and explain exactly where you're going. After all, it's a top-secret national research facility. Every question and action needs to be documented and filed. I've helped someone go through the process once before, so I know exactly how it works. Although most people find it too much of a hassle and choose to just stay here, he has always had high hopes for this city. As he thinks this over, curled up in the warmth of the fireplace, a wave of exhaustion washes over him. He puts down what he's working on, thinking he'll just take a quick nap at the table. But when he wakes up again, he realizes it's already pitch black outside. I curse to myself, at this hour, the cafeteria probably won't have any food left. There's a good chance he'll go hungry tonight, but he decides to head over anyway, clinging to a final shred of hope. Since he always eats at the cafeteria, he doesn't have any food of his own here. Just as he picks up his lunch tin and meal tickets to open the door, he sees Zhao Xiaotong standing there, holding a lunchbox and about to knock. Both of them freeze for a second. Zhao Xiaotong is the first to react. Handing the lunchbox to me, Comrade Ji, I noticed you didn't come to the cafeteria tonight, and I wasn't sure if you were feeling unwell. The cafeteria was about to close, so I took the liberty of bringing you a portion. I stare at the lunchbox held out in front of him, hesitant to speak. Zhao Xiaotong quickly adds, this lunchbox is brand new. It's never been used. There really wasn't a better option. He couldn't just let himself go hungry, so he takes the lunchbox from her. He thanks her and tries to hand her the meal tickets he was holding. Zhao Xiaotong waves her hands repeatedly, Comrade Ji, no need to be so polite. You should keep the meal tickets for yourself. Seeing that she won't take them, I insist, pretending to look stern, if you don't take them, then I can't accept the food either. Hearing him put it that way, Zhao Xiaotong finally takes the tickets, reminding him that the food has gotten a bit cold, telling him to heat it up before eating. With that, she turns and leaves. I carry the lunchbox inside, completely unaware of the gaze fixed on him from the darkness nearby. The eyes of Cheng Mukchu. Cheng Mukchu has been standing in the distance, watching the whole scene unfold. Her heart is flooded with waves of pain and anger. It's only been 3 months, and Ji Feng has already found someone new? No wonder he's been turning a blind eye to her. He left so heartlessly back then, and just now, he turned away just as coldly. Then what was the point of her giving up her position as commander just to come here and be a lowly sentry soldier? What was the point of abandoning a privileged life to come to this cold, miserable place? Cheng Mukchu was trembling all over, whether from the freezing cold or from pure rage, she couldn't tell. Her hands were clenched into tight fists, her nails digging so deep into her palms they were almost breaking the skin. Yet, she felt nothing. She instinctively wanted to step forward and ask Ji Yufeng what was going on. But just 2 steps in, someone called out to her, "Comrade Cheng. What are you doing out here so late at night? This is the researchers' living quarters. Our dorms are on the other side." Cheng Mukchu turned around to find it was the person who had returned with her after delivering supplies earlier. Not knowing how to respond immediately, she just stayed silent. Luckily, the person made up an excuse for her. "Are you new here? You must have gotten lost since you aren't familiar with the place yet." Cheng Mukchu went along with it, nodding, "Yes, that's right. Sorry for the trouble." The person let out a hearty laugh. They stepped forward and patted her on the shoulder. "Not at all. It's no trouble, I'll just walk you over there. But you have to remember, don't just wander over to this side again. Especially these rooms, they're all occupied by the men." "Understood, I'll keep that in mind." The person said nothing more and led Cheng Mukchu away in the other direction. Unlike the brick house I lived in, Cheng Mukchu's accommodation was in a mud brick building. Their entire area followed the same layout, with rooms shared by 2 or even more people. Cheng Mukchu followed the person to her room. As luck would have it, she was assigned to share a room with Zhao Xiaotong. It was the only room with a vacancy. Zhao Xiaotong didn't know about the tension between her and me, nor did she realize she had been pegged as a romantic rival. Seeing someone walk in, she greeted her, "Comrade Cheng. What a coincidence, we're roommates." Seeing her, Cheng Mukchu immediately thought back to the scene she had witnessed at my door earlier. She replied with a cold not feeling very friendly. Zhao Xiaotong found it a bit strange. She had been chatting so comfortably with her on the supply truck. Why was she being so cold now that they were back at the base? But she didn't dwell on it, assuming she was just in a bad mood. When Cheng Mukchu had arrived in the city, she was just wondering how to get to the research base, when she ran into Zhao Xiaotong and others who were out on a procurement trip. After a brief exchange, Cheng Mukchu showed them her credentials and transfer orders, so they brought her back with them. The two had talked happily the whole way, feeling like they had found a kindred spirit in each other. Zhao Xiaotong wasn't gossipy or intrusive, and her well-balanced conversation made Cheng Mukchu feel very at ease. She had thought they could become great friends, but she never expected that the moment she returned, she would see her and me together. For the first time, Cheng Mukchu really sized up Zhao Xiaotong. She stared at her for a long time, yet couldn't find anything special about her. Her appearance wasn't particularly striking. Compared to herself, she was nowhere near as good, so how could she be the type of person I would like? She couldn't help but think she was overreacting. Perhaps they were just friends. But do friends really act the way they were acting? Cheng Mukchu didn't want to dig any deeper. She only felt incredibly restless. She lay in bed for a long time, unable to fall asleep, listening to Zhao Xiaotang's steady breathing. She didn't dare to toss and turn, fearing she would wake her up. And so, she laid there wide awake until dawn. A few days later, Cheng Mukchu went to stand guard at the research building as scheduled. From a distance, she saw me walking towards her with a tall, handsome researcher. The two were laughing and talking with each other. They looked like they had a very close relationship. Are they just friends? He had come here and made a new friend, but these things. Cheng Mukchu wouldn't get an answer, which only made her more irritable. Because she realized that, right now, she knew absolutely nothing about me. She suppressed her anger and greeted the two of us, "Good morning." I just gave a curt nod and walked inside. The researcher with him, however, politely replied, "Good morning." Then he quickened his pace to catch up and walk with me. Watching my cold attitude, Ku Tongzhou couldn't help but feel a bit curious. In her memory, I was always a very gentle and polite person. I was always the first to greet others when we met. There's always something strange when things go against the norm. My attitude toward this sentry made him intuitively feel like something had happened between us. But he wasn't a gossipy person. If Ji Yufeng didn't say anything, he wouldn't ask. The previous argument had ended with Commander Liu making the final call, letting Ji Yufeng proceed with his own plan, so Ku Tongzhou hadn't said anything more. Since the matter was settled, he simply focused on doing his job well. Once the two entered the building, they went off to handle their own tasks. They wouldn't have any interaction unless necessary. The daily research work was dull but required a high level of concentration. I was exhausted by the time I finished work. When I walked out of the doorway, I didn't see Cheng Mukchu. I let out a quiet sigh of relief. Although she couldn't affect my mood anymore, the way she looked at me made it very easy for others to read into things. And I was too lazy to explain. I didn't want others to know about that past. So, seeing her always gave me a headache. It was a relief she wasn't there today. Back in my room, I looked at the pair of knitted gloves on the table, wondering how to give them to Zhao Xiaotong. I hadn't seen her in a while, and I didn't know what she was busy with. But for me to just go to Zhao Xiaotang's room to find her, I felt a bit shy. Just as I was hesitating, I heard a knock at the door. Talk about speaking of the devil. The moment I opened the door and saw Zhao Xiaotong, this proverb popped into my head. I couldn't help but let out a soft laugh. Zhao Xiaotong was left completely confused. Uncertainly, she asked, "Comrade Jiyu, what are you laughing at?" Coming back to my senses, I immediately shook my head. "Comrade Zhao, you came at just the right time. I have a gift for you." As I spoke, I turned back into the room to get it. Receiving the gloves, Zhao Xiaotong couldn't quite believe it. Her face was a mix of shock and joy. In the end, the joy won out. Uncertainly, she asked, "Are these for me?" I nodded. "But why are you giving me this?" "Thank you for looking after me. I've caused you so much trouble over these past few days. But you never once complained or showed impatience. You've always been patiently helping me solve my problems. I am truly very grateful." Hearing his thanks, Zhao Xiaotong shyly lowered her head and said softly, "These are all things I should have done. Comrade Jiyu, you don't need to be like this." Though she said that, she didn't stop moving, immediately putting them on to try them out. They fit perfectly. "Thank you, Comrade Jiyu. This is the first time someone has given me a gift." Seeing that my gift was well received, I felt quite happy too. I didn't fully master my mother's skills, so they aren't woven very well. "Please don't mind." Zhao Xiaotong waved her hands repeatedly. No, they're already very good." Then, with a dim look in her eyes, she added, "I never even got to meet my mother." I froze, not knowing how to comfort her. But she quickly changed the subject herself. "Almost forgot the main point. They're holding a table tennis tournament today. Weren't you participating?" Life at the base is simple, but not crude. According to Zhao Xiaotong, everyone often hangs out after work, playing ping pong or basketball, but because it's quite cold in winter, they haven't played in a long time. I didn't expect them to organize a match tonight, and my eyes lit up. I nodded, and so, the two of us headed toward the ping pong hall. Zhao Xiaotong looked at me walking in front of her. The emotions in her eyes were complex and conflicted. As soon as the two of us left, Cheng Mukcho's figure appeared right where we had been standing. She had originally come to talk to Ji Yufeng, but she never expected to run into that scene. If Zhao Xiaotong bringing him food was just a friend helping out, then what was the meaning of Ji Yufeng giving someone else gloves? Cheng Mukchu didn't want to admit it, but she had to. It seemed like Ji Yufeng had already fallen in love with someone else, and the dull ache in her heart turned into a sharp blade, twisting inside. It hurt so much that she couldn't catch her breath, and her hands hanging by her sides couldn't stop trembling. She didn't know what to do, she didn't know where to go. It was as if her brain had lost the ability to think, and she just stood there, blank and motionless. She didn't know how long she had been standing there, but by the time she snapped back to reality, I had already appeared in front of her again. When I saw Cheng Mukchu standing at my door, I was stunned for a moment, not because of her appearance, but because of her vacant, soul-absent expression. I cursed under my breath. My good mood for the day had been completely ruined in this moment, but I still walked up to her. "What are you here for?" I asked irritably. Cheng Mukchu had originally wanted to have a serious talk about their issues, but she didn't know if there was even a point to talking now, so she just stared at him blankly without saying a word. Since she wouldn't speak, I was even less inclined to bother. I walked around her, intending to go straight inside. Just as the door was about to close, I heard Cheng Mukcho's trembling voice, "Ji Yufeng, let's talk." I wanted to say there was nothing left to talk about with her, but I figured it might be better to clear things up once and for all. Otherwise, if Cheng Mukchu kept blocking his way at the base, he wouldn't be able to stand it either. So, I let Cheng Mukchu into the room. "Come in and talk," I said. Cheng Mukchu followed me inside. "Sit down," I said, and handed her a cup of tea. "Say whatever you need to say." "Ji Yufeng, I thought I was in the right. I apologize to you. There's no need to bring up the past. Besides, there's nothing right or wrong about it. Not loving someone isn't your fault. It's just that I realized it too late." Cheng Mukchu panicked as soon as she heard this. "It's not like that. I love you." I was taken aback, then immediately let out a laugh. "What did you just say?" Cheng Mukchu explained in a low voice. "Ji Yufeng, I am in love with you. It's just that I realized it too late myself. I didn't realize until you left that I had fallen for you long ago. I've already made things clear with Lin Ran. It was all my fault. I was just too foolish." My expression was complex. "Are you saying that you've now discovered the person you love isn't Lin Ran, but me? So, you ran all the way here because of me?" "Yes, Ji Yufeng. I know I've done too many wrong things. Can you give me a chance to make it up to you?" She looked at me with deep affection, but I curled my lips into a mocking smile. "But Cheng Mukchu, I haven't loved you for a long time." His love had long since been worn away by her cold glances day after day. A single, honest conversation had shattered all of Cheng Mukcho's hope. All she could think about was my sentence, "I haven't loved you for a long time." How could I have said such cruel things? How could someone who loved her so much suddenly stop? Her mind was spiraling. She felt agony in every fiber of her being. When she got back to her place, she looked terrible. It gave Zhao Xiaotong a real fright. She quickly pulled her over to sit down. She handed her a cup of hot water and asked with genuine concern, "Comrade Cheng, are you all right?" Cheng Mukchu felt a surge of anger just looking at her face, but she forced herself to remember that their private business shouldn't drag others into it. She told her with a grim look that she was fine. She handed back the cup and laid down. Zhao Xiaotong had wanted to ask if she needed to go to the infirmary. But seeing the state she was in, she decided not to say anything. She turned off the lights to get some rest. During the night, it started snowing without a sound. By the time morning came, there was already a thick layer of snow, and it showed no signs of stopping. I put on an extra layer of clothes, then wrapped my scarf and gloves on, ready to head to work. The moment I pushed the door open, everything was blanketed in white. It was blinding for a second. He suddenly remembered how in his past life, he had always wanted to watch the snow with Cheng Mukchu, but it had never come to pass. He didn't actually have an obsession with snow, but the people in the military compound always used to say, "If we walk together in the snow, we'll be together until our hair turns white." It had added an unearned romantic touch to the snow for him, but now he gave a bitter laugh. Compared to romance, he felt that roads without snow were much easier to travel. Slipping and sliding with every step made him want to swear. In this bone-chilling weather, on a road so slippery it was hard to even walk, who on earth could actually like a snowy day? By the third time he was about to wipe out, his resentment toward the snowy day reached its peak. Passing a downhill stretch, I carefully inched my way forward, but I still slipped and almost took a nasty tumble. Luckily, someone behind me steadied me. I was just about to turn around to say thank you, but when I saw it was Cheng Mukchu, I immediately pulled my hand away. Cheng Mukchu noticed his reaction and gave a bitter, hollow laugh. Even in a situation like this, he still refused to have any physical contact with her. She felt like her heart was being sliced into 1,000 pieces. The pain was so sharp it made it hard for her to breathe. But when she saw him about to fall again, she still couldn't help but reach out to catch him, only to find another hand had already grabbed me. "Be careful, Comrade Gu." Zhao Xiaotong had reacted quickly and steadied me, saving me from falling. When I saw it was her, I smiled and thanked her. "This stretch is quite slippery," she said, "and with no wall to hold onto, why don't we just hold onto each other and walk a bit? Once we reach the flat ground, you'll be fine." Before, when it snowed just a thin layer. By the time I left the house, everyone had already packed it down, so I hadn't expected the thick snow on this path to be so difficult. It was truly hard for one person to get down this slope alone. I agreed to Zhao Xiaotang's suggestion, thanked her again, and holding onto her sleeve, we started to walk forward. Cheng Mukchu stood there, frozen, watching the scene until the two of them reached the flat ground. My figure disappeared around the corner, yet she still didn't come to her senses. Her eyes were burning red. Her hands were tightly clenched, and she hadn't moved a single inch. The way I treat her compared to everyone else is like night and day. He is incredibly friendly to everyone here. With a constant, beaming smile, in just a few short months, he has built an impeccable reputation for getting along with others. Whenever people talk about him, they always call Comrade Gu gentle, polite, and full of warmth. Whoever marries him is truly blessed, she hears people say. Every time she hears words like these, it feels like a knife stabbing directly into her heart. She had held him in her arms for a brief moment, but it seems she has lost him forever. After being together for so many years, the final outcome turned out to be a forced divorce, and Ji Yufeng even hid the truth from her when he came here. What's more, when Ji Yufeng looks at her, there is no love left in his eyes, only a coldness that feels even more detached than how one looks at a stranger. Every time she thinks of this, Cheng Mukchu wants to slap herself across the face. Why was she so incredibly dense? She remembers how Ji Yufeng used to cook for her with a beaming smile, and the dejected look on his face when she wouldn't even touch a single bite. She remembers the way he would try to get close to her, only to be pushed away by her cold, icy gaze. Even when he decided on the divorce, he still worried about his mother's wishes and didn't want her to take any risks. But what did she do? She said nothing but absolute garbage to him. She doesn't even dare to look back on those scenes. Every time they come to mind, her heart aches and twists. She even went out of her way to be blatantly good to Lin Ran right in front of him. Showing concern for Lin Ran at every turn. In front of outsiders, she never gave him the respect a real husband deserved. Day after day, she crushed that burning, passionate heart of his until it was riddled with holes. These scenes flashed through her mind one after another. Cheng Mukchu desperately wants to travel back in time to stop herself, to say, don't treat him like this. But she can't. It has already happened. The damage is already done. All she can do now is to make amends, to keep trying to make up for it. Hoping that one day she might earn Ji Yufeng's forgiveness, I went to the workshop and greeted everyone, then headed to the back to find Ku Tongzhou. Ku Tongjo was sitting there as usual, reviewing yesterday's research report. Seeing me walk in, a gentle smile lit up his face as he greeted me. Was the road tough to walk today? I thought about how I kept looking back with every few steps I took today, and nodded helplessly. It was quite difficult. Ku Tongjo chuckled softly. Do be careful out there from now on. It really doesn't matter if you're a few minutes late for work. I nodded to show I understood. Once the brief pleasantries were over, we didn't waste time on idle chatter and went straight to discussing work. Ku Tongjo showed me the experimental data from yesterday. It was completely different from last time's results. It was another set of useless data. None of the multiple experimental results shared any similarities. In other words, our research direction was wrong again. We both fell into a heavy silence. I had argued so strongly for this approach last time and pinned so much hope on this direction. I never imagined we would end up with the same result. We had failed again. Although they say that countless failures are the price you pay for ultimate success, the process of going through those countless failures is truly, agonizingly tortuous. Looking at how I was reacting, Ku Tongjo didn't resort to saying, I told you it wouldn't work, but you insisted, or mock me while I was down. Instead, he comforted me softly. Actually, it's not like we've gained nothing. At the very least, we've successfully ruled out one wrong path. If you don't know how to comfort someone, you really don't have to try, the team member who came to deliver documents thought to himself when he heard that. He really wanted to say that to Ku Tongjo, but because the experimental results were so poor, everyone was in such a foul mood that the team member didn't say anything more. He set the materials down and left. For the rest of the morning, both of us stayed in the office, feeling deeply dejected. I can't think of a new direction, and I can't find any progress either. It's rare for the two of us to be in the office together without it being chaotic. It was so quiet at noon, it felt like no one was there. Ku Tongjo asked me if I wanted to go grab lunch, along with two of our female colleagues. I agreed, so the two of us headed to the cafeteria together. Usually, I eat with the people in my team, most of the time with Ku Tongjo. Although there were two female colleagues I didn't know well this time, I didn't think much of it at first. But as more and more curious stares were cast our way, I started to feel really uneasy. Ku Tongjo wasn't affected at all, just focused on his food. Occasionally, he'd share some random thoughts that popped into his head, and gradually, I stopped caring about what others thought and dove deep into our conversation. We were chatting so excitedly, our ideas constantly sparking off one another. It gave us both new inspiration, and soon enough, those judgmental stares faded away. Except for Chang Mukcho's, that is. She sat in the corner, watching the two of us laughing and talking away. She was gripping her chopsticks so hard they were about to snap. How come she never realized I was so popular with the ladies? I could laugh and chat happily with any woman, except for her. Chang Mukchu suddenly realized that back in the day, I rarely chatted with her either. And most of the time when we did talk, it wasn't pleasant. She rarely ever saw me smiling like this. When I was with her, I always seemed to be walking on eggshells, suppressing my own emotions, trying to guess her unpredictable moods. Even when we were intimate, I always put her feelings first. Yet she rarely considered my feelings, taking advantage of my love to do whatever she wanted. Some things shouldn't be dwelled upon. The more you think, the more terrifying it gets. She couldn't even find a single trace in her memory of ever being good to me. She couldn't understand what had gotten into her back then, to be so blind to everything. To the point of pushing someone who loved her so deeply to divorce her without hesitation. The discussion between the two of us continued, but Chang Mukchu couldn't bear to watch anymore. Those gentle looks that used to belong solely to her were now given to everyone else. Except for her. She got up and left the cafeteria. The weather outside was still incredibly bright, but clouds were piling up in Chang Mukcho's heart. Like a torrential downpour was about to break, washing everything she had away. She stared blankly into the distance, suddenly feeling that her hopes of winning me back were practically non-existent. The lunch break filled with our discussion ended, and that lingering sense of defeat in me had vanished. I was full of drive again. When we returned to the office that afternoon, the team suspected we'd been swapped. We were completely different from the gloomy people from the morning. Not only did I adjust my own mood, but I also boosted everyone else's spirits. I called a quick meeting, encouraging everyone not to give up or be discouraged. We will definitely overcome the current difficulties, and future success belongs to us. That morale-boosting speech worked wonders. When everyone left the meeting room, they were all brimming with energy. If this path doesn't work, then we'll just try another one. Everyone went back to brainstorming and digging through data. I had long since found the right path. As long as the direction is right, then the rest is just a matter of time. The hard part is that people have been searching for this direction for so many years, and still haven't found it. Days always slip through our fingers so quietly, without us even noticing. By the time I noticed, the cottonwood trees the base had cultivated had already sprouted new branches. Spring had arrived. He had been looking forward to spring for a long time. Once the weather warmed up, he could go out and wander around this land. But he didn't expect that before he could even start his own activities. The base's activities had already kicked off. It had been too cold during the winter, so everyone could only gather occasionally to sneak a game of cards or do some simple indoor exercises. Now that the weather had warmed up, all sorts of entertainment were back on the table. First and foremost, the logistics department announced that everyone could watch an outdoor movie together in the evening. They would find an open space after dinner to set up the screen, which was undoubtedly something everyone loved. The few women in the group had been talking about it since the morning. Unable to hide their excitement, I enjoy watching movies too, especially these kinds where everyone gathers around. There's a unique peaceful atmosphere to it. It makes him feel incredibly comfortable. After dinner, when he arrived at the venue carrying his little stool, many people had already gathered. Everyone was sharing their own sunflower seeds or other snacks. A crowd was huddled together, chatting away, while children ran around playing in the distance. I think this kind of atmosphere is wonderful. In my past life, what I loved most was the time spent watching movies together in the military compound. But later, as society developed, most families got their own televisions, and these kinds of movie screenings were rarely organized anymore. Relationships between people also drifted apart. Everyone became immersed in their own worlds, and people became indifferent toward one another. Comrade Gu, these are sunflower seeds our family roasted ourselves. Would you like a handful? The sudden voice brought him back to reality. Looking at the completely unfamiliar face before him, I pulled up a smile, grabbed a handful of seeds, and said thank you. As the movie was about to start, he felt someone sit down next to him. Turning his head, he saw it was Chang Mukchu. He didn't say anything, just moved his stool a bit to the side. Chang Mukchu didn't follow him over, and didn't even turn to look at me, keeping her eyes fixed intently on the screen in front. Yet, her hands, which kept clenching and unclenching, betrayed the turmoil in her heart. She knew she shouldn't have come up here. I had already made it clear. I didn't want to disrupt his life anymore and shouldn't keep trying to get close to him. But Chang Mukchu just couldn't help it. She had hesitated for a long while in the back, but in the end, she moved her stool up just a moment before the movie started. But unsurprisingly, I walked away again. I only noticed Chang Mukchu on this side, not realizing that he had moved 2 steps over, almost shoulder to shoulder with Zhao Xiaotong. Zhao Xiaotong noticed this and quickly shifted over a little bit, so that he wouldn't feel too uncomfortable. He gave Zhao Xiaotong a grateful look. Zhao Xiaotong leaned toward his ear and whispered, Comrade Gu, did you know Comrade Cheng from before? I shook my head. No. Then do you two have some kind of conflict? Why does it feel like you go out of your way to avoid her every time you see her? I shook my head again. No. You're mistaken. The two were speaking in very low voices. But Cheng Mukcho's hearing was sharp, and every word reached her ears. I am desperately trying to stay away from her, not wanting to have anything to do with her at all. Nor do I want others to know about our past, the one who used to show off everywhere she went. My wife is the most incredible, yet team leader Cheng has disappeared. Her Gu Feng doesn't want their future anymore. He doesn't even want their past either. The movie ended so quickly. I was watching with such fascination that even after it ended, I was still discussing the plot with Zhao Xiaotong. Cheng Mukchu, on the other hand, hadn't taken any of it in. Her head was full of thoughts on how she could get me to forgive her. After this period of time, she no longer dared to hope that she could bring me back. As long as I didn't hide from her, she would be satisfied. Seeing the two of them still chatting away even after it ended, that feeling of irritation welled up in Cheng Mukchu again. She walked over and pulled Zhao Xiaotong up, saying, Comrade Zhao, the movie is already over. Let's hurry back and get washed up. I looked at Zhao Xiaotong, who had been suddenly pulled to her feet. I had no idea what kind of mood Cheng Mukchu was in this time. Back when I was chasing after her, she would give me the cold shoulder and ignore me. After I followed her wishes and got a divorce, she chased me all the way here. Even after I spoke frankly and clearly with her, she still wouldn't leave. She even comes by my side every single day to hang around. Why hadn't I noticed before that Cheng Mukchu could be so incredibly annoying? Looking at the face I was once so obsessed with, the more I looked at it now, the more annoyed I felt. I stood up, said goodbye to Zhao Xiaotong, and returned to my room. The next day, when I arrived at the research building, I discovered that it was Cheng Mukchu standing guard. I sighed helplessly and walked into the building, ignoring her just the same. After greeting the other members of the group, I focused entirely on my work. That long talk with Ku Tongzhou had really had some effect. The two of us managed to explore a new direction. We had been constantly testing things out lately. If it succeeds, perhaps completing the mission won't be far off. I was fully engrossed in my work. 0.52, 0.2, 63. I was completely focused on recording the data. 0.27, 47.114, 01, 402. When I had no time to spare for anything else, time flew by incredibly fast. By the time I came to my senses, it was already past lunchtime. It wasn't until a comrade from the group came back from eating and greeted me that I realized I had missed lunch. I wasn't actually hungry, so I just decided not to eat. But having been stuck here all morning, I needed to go out and breathe some fresh air. It turned out that as soon as I reached the door, I saw Cheng Mukchu holding a lunchbox and waiting downstairs. Seeing me come out, she hurriedly greeted me. Ji Yu Feng, I saw you never came downstairs today. You must have missed lunch, so I made a portion for you. She held out the lunchbox she was carrying, but I didn't take it. I even took a step back to create some distance. Thank you, but I'm not hungry. My attitude was as cold as ever. A flicker of disappointment crossed Cheng Mukcho's eyes, but she quickly adjusted her emotions and smiled, saying, how can you not eat? You should eat at least a little something, it's all your favorite food. I felt completely helpless. I took a deep breath and spoke, Cheng Mukchu. I told you not to appear in front of me again. What exactly do you want? I was just worried you were hungry and wanted to bring you some food. What did I do wrong? Why can you eat what Zhao Xiaotong brings, but not what I bring? Cheng Mukchu, pushed to the edge by his attitude, became incredibly frustrated and blurted it out. Immediately realizing she had said the wrong thing, she hurriedly apologized, I'm sorry, Ji Yu Feng. I didn't mean it like that. I looked at her in shock. Leaving behind only the words you're unbelievable, I turned and left, leaving Cheng Mukchu standing there alone, clutching the lunchbox. She felt a sharp pain in her belly and lifted her shirt to take a look. A large area was red and irritated. Honestly, in this weather, food doesn't get cold that easily. But Cheng Mukchu still wanted him to have a warm meal. To keep the lunchbox insulated, she had kept it pressed against her body the whole way, but I couldn't even be bothered to look at it. Cheng Mukchu felt a bit sad, but she also felt she deserved it. Compared to what I've suffered all these years, his attitude toward me is already a kind of mercy. She shouldn't ask for too much, she just needs to take things one step at a time. Eventually, there will come a day when the ice between us breaks. Cheng Mukchu carried the lunchbox back to her place. The weather had warmed up, so my previous plans could finally be put on the schedule. On my day off, I submitted an application to go out and a request to use one of the heavy-duty bicycles. There were a few of them parked in the unit's shed, specifically provided for our convenience. Anyone who wanted to use one just had to submit an application. I had been wanting to visit the grottos for a long time, so I asked some colleagues about it in advance. Their advice was to ride a bike there, you could make it back in a single day. When I handed the report to Ku Tongzhou, he asked as a matter of routine. What are you going out for? When will you be back? Just going to check out some nearby grottos. I'll be back as soon as I'm done. After the brief questioning, Ku Tongzhou nodded. He stamped the form and then shifted into a friendly tone. Do you know the way? It wouldn't be good if you went alone and got lost. The colleagues in the group gave me the directions, I won't get lost. I acknowledged his concern. Just as he turned to leave, Ku Tongzhou called me back. I just remembered I happened to have some business over that way. If you don't mind, let's go together tomorrow. I certainly don't mind. Having someone familiar along would definitely eliminate the risk of getting lost. That was settled. When I walked out of the building, I was in a great mood. Especially looking at the clear, cloudless sky. I hadn't walked far when Zhao Xiaotong approached me. What's got you so happy? I answered truthfully, going to the grottos tomorrow. Upon hearing this, her eyes lit up with excitement. I'm going there with Comrade Ku tomorrow for business. Can I tag along with you? I naturally agreed, that works out perfectly. Let's all go together. After we agreed, I prepared to head back, but after walking a few steps, the smile on my face vanished instantly. Cheng Mukchu was standing not far away, waiting for me. I sighed helplessly, not understanding why Cheng Mukchu was always haunting me like a ghost. I felt I had already made myself clear, and in my impression, Cheng Mukchu wasn't the type to pester someone, she was far too proud for that. I wanted to walk right past her, but Cheng Mukchu spoke up first. I heard you submitted an outing application. Where are you going? News travels fast, *, I thought to myself, frustrated. I didn't spare her any grace with my reply, Comrade Cheng. This question has nothing to do with you, does it? Cheng Mukchu froze for a moment, then whispered in explanation, I didn't mean anything by it. I was just worried, you're unfamiliar with the area, and there might be some danger. That's none of your concern. I'm not a child, and I won't be in any danger. Having said that, I didn't pay her any more mind and just walked away on my own. Cheng Mukchu wanted to ask him why he wasn't going alone, and who he was going with. But every question got stuck in her throat, and she could only watch that vibrant figure walk away. However, she had already filed a request with her superiors, planning to follow him out tomorrow. There was a hidden desire for some alone time, but mostly, she was just worried about his safety. The next day, as Cheng Mukchu pushed her bicycle out, she only saw Ku Tongzhou and Zhao Xiaotong riding off into the distance together. Chang Mukchu gripped the handlebars so hard that her knuckles turned white, as if she wanted to twist them right off. I had no idea Chang Mukchu was following behind, I was just sticking to the original plan. The journey with Ku Tongzhou was very pleasant, he was like a research maniac when he was working. But in everyday life, he was witty and humorous, with an endless supply of jokes and puns. He kept Zhao Xiaotong and me laughing constantly as the three of us crossed hill after hill. Finally, we saw a village. After traveling all that way, the three of us were parched. We asked for a drink of water and chatted with the villagers who spoke in their local dialect. Then we continued on our way. The path to the grottos wasn't that far. It was just that the road was uneven and difficult to navigate. Even though my cycling skills are solid, I was still sweating all over. At a fork in the road, he parted ways with Ku Tongzhou and Zhao Xiaotong. Before leaving, Ku Tongzhou asked with concern, "Comrade Gu, how long will you be looking around? Do you need me to come meet up with you once I'm done? And then we can head back together?" I shook my head and said, "No need. I've already memorized the route, I can find my own way back." Upon hearing this, Ku Tongzhou didn't insist, just urged me to get back early. As he rode off, I finally arrived at the grottos at noon. I grabbed a quick bite at a nearby shop and went into the grottos alone. The countless caves were like time capsules, each telling its own story. They held endless charm, and the murals featured a wide range of subjects. The content was so rich and diverse that I became completely lost in thought. He had heard his mother tell stories about this place countless times, but they were nowhere near as breathtaking as seeing it in person. His mother's ancestral home was here, but later, she left to make a life with his father. So she rarely returned home. He had seen his mother sitting by the window gazing at the moon more than once. When he was little, he curiously asked his mother, "What are you looking at?" "Looking at the moon. What's so good about the moon? You can see the people you miss in the moon, and you can see home." Later on, he realized that his mother was just homesick. She missed the home she rarely got to visit anymore. He knew his mother really wanted to come back and take a look. But his father was always so busy with work that even when he passed away, they never managed to go back. She couldn't take one last look at the home she held so dear. That's why his mother would tirelessly tell him stories about the Gobi Desert, stories about these murals and grottos. It sparked a deep longing in him, and he thought that one day, he just had to come and see it for himself. To see the place where his mother had lived. Now, he had finally arrived. He had finally seen it with his own eyes. It really was just like his mother had described. It possessed an infinite charm and appeal. Just as I was completely absorbed in the art. Chang Mukchu arrived silently outside the grottos. She didn't go inside. She knew I wasn't happy to see her, so she decided not to be an eyesore. But no matter how much I despised her, she wouldn't leave me alone. In this unfamiliar place, she was worried about my safety. Even though it made her angry to see him with someone else, she followed him without a second thought. Otherwise, if anything happened to me, she'd regret it for the rest of her life. Hanging around outside was miserable. She was constantly being bitten by swarms of mosquitoes. It felt like she was the only target in the area, yet she still had to keep a close watch on the situation. To prevent me from wandering off the moment she looked away, and more importantly, to keep him from discovering her. Otherwise, I'd definitely get angry again, and there's a chance I'd force her to stop following me. If that happened, her whole trip would have been a waste of time and money. I'd accidentally spent way too long inside the grotto. By the time I came out, the sun was already setting, and I thought to myself, this is bad. I had planned to just take a quick look and head back, but I got so lost in thought that I completely lost track of time. I rushed to get on my bike, the sun dipping lower and lower as I moved. I quickened my pace in a panic, but I didn't expect to hit a small mound and flip the bike. Usually, flipping a heavy old bike wouldn't cause any real harm, you'd just pick it up and keep riding. But the problem was I had been in such a rush that I twisted my ankle when I fell. A piercing pain shot up from my ankle, and I was sweating from the agony. Just as I was feeling helpless, I heard a frantic voice shouting, "Ji Yufeng." Then came the sound of a bike being tossed aside and hurried footsteps. I struggled to look up. Chang Mukcho's anxious face came into view. "Ji Yufeng, are you okay? Where are you hurt?" She pushed the bike off me and helped me as I tried to get up. "Can you stand?" I followed her lead and tried. A sharp, drilling pain made me cry out, and Chang Mukchu didn't dare to move me anymore. She told me to just sit right there. I sat for a while to catch my breath. Feeling the pain subside just a little, I finally said, "I think I twisted my ankle. It's nothing major, I just need a moment." Chang Mukchu waited for me to calm down while rapidly calculating the distance in her head. She finally decided, "Let's turn back, there might be a doctor in that village. Let's get it looked at first. But if we go back, tonight, it's highly likely we won't make it back, but even if we don't, at least we'll have a place to stay. Besides, with your condition, you can't ride your bike anyway, can you?" I had no argument against that. It ended up with Cheng Mukchu riding her bike and hauling me along, while I sat on the back seat, holding onto the other bike as we moved. Although it wasn't safe, the company bike couldn't just be left behind. If someone stole the bike, it would be a huge headache. To keep me from falling off the back, Cheng Mukchu had no choice but to ride slower, and then even slower. Because of this, what should have been a short trip took a lot of time. When they reached the village, it was already dark, and many of the villagers had already finished their day and were resting. Cheng Mukchu had to find a house that still had its lights on and knocked on the door. "Hello? We're just passing through. Would you mind opening the door?" After a few knocks, the door opened from the inside. A man holding a kerosene lamp looked them over and asked in a thick dialect, "What are you two doing here?" Cheng Mukchu was stunned for a second, then replied, "Comrade, we're just passing through, but we had an accident and twisted an ankle. We wanted to ask if there's a doctor in the village who could take a look." After Cheng Mukchu finished explaining sincerely, the man looked back and forth at their faces before finally ushering them inside. "Come on in, get inside the house first. It's freezing outside now that it's dark. You two are lucky. The barefoot doctor who treats people just happens to be at my place. Let him take a look at it for you." After finishing speaking, he went to the other room to call for someone. Although it was a bit of a struggle for me to hear clearly, I managed to understand that he went to fetch a doctor for me. So, I sat on the stool and waited quietly. Before long, a doctor walked in carrying a medical kit. His clothes were just draped over his shoulders. It looked like he had been getting ready for bed when he was called out. I apologized sheepishly. "I'm so sorry to bother you so late at night." The doctor waved his hand. "Don't say that. Saving lives and healing the wounded is a doctor's duty." Hearing him say that, I didn't push the matter further and just gave him a smile. The doctor pressed down on my ankle a few times and asked about the pain. I answered his questions one by one, and the doctor nodded. He then gave his diagnosis. It was just a dislocation, and it would be fine once he popped it back into place. As he spoke, he started the procedure. With a loud click, I felt as if I couldn't breathe for a second from the pain, and I even forgot to scream. Cheng Mukchu saw his rough and ready technique, and before she could even shout, "Wait a second," it was already over. Then she saw the pained, twisted expression on my face. She hurriedly leaned over, asking, "Are you alright, Ji Yu Feng? Where does it hurt?" I was in too much pain to answer her, but the doctor spoke up. "He's fine. This is all normal. Once the immediate pain passes, he'll be able to walk normally." After a long while, I felt like I finally regained my senses. I let out a long sigh. "Get up and give it a try. See if there's any discomfort left," the doctor said, seeing that I had recovered. He spoke to me, and Cheng Mukchu helped me up. I tried moving it and realized it really didn't hurt anymore. So, I gently pushed Cheng Mukchu's hand away and took a few steps forward on my own. Convinced that I could move normally, I quickly turned to the doctor and said, "Thank you, doctor. It doesn't hurt, and there's no discomfort at all." The doctor nodded. "Take it easy for a while, don't let it happen again." "Alright, I'll be careful." Since the ankle issue was resolved, I stood up to say goodbye to everyone. "Thank you all for today. It's getting late, so we won't disturb you any longer." Cheng Mukchu was stunned. "You're leaving now?" I nodded. Cheng Mukchu glanced at the sky outside and urged, "Why not wait until tomorrow to head back?" "I can't. The deadline for the request is today. If I go back tomorrow, I might get disciplined." I shook my head firmly. He didn't want to get disciplined, and he especially didn't want to be the reason that Cheng Mukchu got in trouble, so it was best to go back today. But Cheng Mukchu wouldn't budge on this point. It was very unsafe to go back now. On the side, the doctor also helped persuade me. "This comrade, the young lady, is right. It's way too dangerous to go out at this hour. There might even be wild wolves in the woods. Even if you face some discipline, that's better than losing your life." I was just about to say there wouldn't be, but as if to back up the doctor's words, the sound of some unknown animal echoed from the distance, making my skin crawl. He was an extremely rule-abiding person. From childhood, he had always put orders first and lived his life trapped within the rules. But in this situation, it seemed he had no choice but to wait until tomorrow to return. The doctor was right, even if he were to be punished. But it's better than losing our lives. So, the two of them ended up staying at this house. The villager only had 2 mud brick rooms, and there wasn't an extra heated bed to spare for the two of them. I didn't mind. Having a place to stay was enough. Anything is better than freezing out there, so we finally decided to sit in the kitchen for the night. The honest and kind-hearted man kept apologizing in his local dialect, saying he felt bad for making us go through this. Usually, they might have looked for a place at someone else's house, but by now, everyone was already asleep. It didn't feel right to go and disturb anyone else. I listened to him and kept waving my hands to decline. It was our own fault for coming here so abruptly and bothering them, yet here he was, constantly apologizing to us. It left me feeling quite awkward. I said, "You providing us with such a safe place to stay is already more than enough. We are truly grateful. Finally, after some back and forth, we managed to send the man away. Only Cheng Mukchu and I were left in the kitchen. With everything finally settled, the two of us sat in the kitchen, speechless. For a long while, the only sound was the crackling of the fire. The firelight shone on our faces, and neither of us could clearly see the other's expression. I sighed softly, breaking the silence first. Thank you for today. Cheng Mukchu didn't react at first. Once it clicked, she quickly spoke up, no need to thank me. As long as you're safe, that's all that matters. I didn't ask her why she was there, the answer was obvious. Asking would only increase the awkwardness between us, so I skipped over the topic. Tell me, how long has it been since we were able to sit together like this and chat peacefully? Cheng Mukchu thought about it seriously. It seemed like this was the first time in years they had even a meal together in peace. The last time we sat down to talk was that night I had made up my mind to leave. But even that time, we only finished half our meal before Lin Ran caught a fever. She had rushed off to take care of her. It was only later that I realized that was supposed to be my proper goodbye to her. Yet, even for that final farewell, she had left halfway through. At that thought, her heart ached. I opened my mouth, but didn't know what to say. Apologies had been offered 1,000 times, but they couldn't undo the damage that had been done. After a long silence, I spoke up again, Cheng Mukchu. Let go of the past and move forward. I have already moved on. You shouldn't be trapped in the past either. Cheng Mukchu didn't make a sound. She didn't say yes, nor did she say no. The two of us just sat there in silence until dawn. Early the next morning, we said goodbye to our hosts. We rode back to the base, and as soon as I arrived, I went straight to Comrade Ku Tongzhou's office to explain myself. I laid out the reasons. I am terribly sorry, Comrade Ku. I sprained my ankle last night and couldn't make it back, so I had to stay with a villager for the night. Comrade Gu, I trust you. But you know the rules around here. I have to ask you a few questions. First, is there anyone who can verify this? I had already anticipated this, and after much hesitation, I still brought it back to the base. Comrade Cheng Mukchu can verify it, and the villager who took us in outside the base can also verify it. Ku Tongzhou seemed stunned, not having expected this. He asked in shock why Comrade Cheng Mukchu could verify it. I sighed, gritted my teeth, and said, because we were together last night. Before Ku Tongzhou could recover from that shocking news, I dropped an even more bombshell piece of information. Comrade Cheng Mukchu is my ex-wife. We used to be a married couple. Ku Tongzhou seemed to have lost his voice. Why hasn't the organization heard of this? It isn't written anywhere in your files. I really didn't want to bring this up, but it concerns the truthfulness of his statements. He had no choice but to answer. Commander Liu is already aware of it. As for the rest, I had it omitted when I applied for the transfer order. I didn't want others to know about that part of my past, but since Commander Liu already knows. Ku Tongzhou had nothing more to say, other than telling him to write a statement first. They would send someone to verify the situation later. There was no other hidden meaning behind it. It was just for the record. I know how the rules work. He nodded and backed out of the office. I thought that would be the end of it, but unexpectedly, a few days later, I was urgently summoned to Commander Liu's office. He was a bit confused. But looking at Commander Liu's demeanor, it was clearly hostile, and he didn't know what had happened. This silence only made him more anxious, so he cautiously asked the commander. Did you call me here for something? Commander Liu didn't speak. He just kept looking him over with a scrutinizing gaze, and instead of answering, he asked, Comrade Gu. You signed a confidentiality agreement when you came here, didn't you? I didn't know what he meant, but I went along with it and said yes. Commander Liu nodded. He continued, then do you know what kind of crime it is to leak classified information to superiors? Upon hearing this, a bad premonition arose in my heart. Sure enough, I heard Commander Liu speak again. We have discovered that someone has been leaking core research secrets. And recently, the only people who submitted outing requests and had the potential to know those core secrets were you and Comrade Ku. Comrade Ku has been here for many years. I know very well what kind of person he is. But you, a massive accusation was suddenly dumped on him. I shouted, I'm being wronged, Commander. You can investigate. I only went out to look at the stone grottos. I have absolutely no intention of betraying the organization. But our investigation shows that the villagers said they never saw you. You're lying. I stared, eyes wide with disbelief. That's impossible. There must be a misunderstanding here. Perhaps there is a misunderstanding. But I'm sorry, Comrade Gu, please cooperate with our investigation. After saying that, he gave a look to the two people behind him, and just like that, I was taken away. He was dragged into a dark room without a word. I didn't even have time to react. His mind was in total chaos, and he couldn't understand at all how things had escalated to this point. He kept thinking someone would come to question him, to investigate. And then he could explain, he could clear his name. But for 3 days straight, there was no news at all. Except for the person who brought him food and water on time, he hadn't seen Commander Liu. Nor had he seen Ku Tongjo. He tried to get information from the person delivering the food, but she kept her mouth shut and refused to tell him anything. In this state of total isolation from the outside world, I was being driven to the brink of madness. Near total collapse, I finally saw Ku Tongjo 5 days later. He had prepared a whole list of explanations, but none of them were needed. After Ku Tongjo came in, he said with a face full of apology, "I'm sorry, Comrade Gu. You've suffered. Everything is fine now. You can leave." After inexplicably locking him up for a week, without asking a single question, they suddenly told him he could leave. I was filled with confusion, and my displeasure was written all over my face. I'd like to ask, what exactly is going on? Ku Tongjo had obviously come here to explain the situation. He waved for the others to leave, then slowly began to explain, "We've already gotten to the bottom of this. This has nothing to do with you. I'm truly sorry. You've suffered for nothing. So, who did it? Someone you'd never expect. Someone who used you." Ku Tongjo spoke with righteous indignation, his voice heavy with uncontrollable anger. This only made me more curious. "Do I know them?" Ku Tongjo let out a cold laugh. He gave me the answer. "Know them? It's your ex-wife, Cheng Mukchu." I froze, doubting what I had just heard. I blurted out, "Impossible." Although his marriage with Cheng Mukchu was a failure, he knew exactly what kind of person she was. She was patriotic and dedicated to her work. She put the country above everything else. How could she possibly do something like this? Ku Tongjo was stunned for a moment. He had assumed that, given my attitude toward Cheng Mukchu, I would be furious to hear she had used me, but he never expected me to defend her immediately. "She has already confessed and provided every single detail." Ku Tongjo began to explain. "Are there no other holes in this story? She was with me all day that day. Maybe you should listen to my statement, too." I couldn't understand why Cheng Mukchu would confess to something so groundless. But I wanted to buy her one last chance. "She only saw you toward the end of the day. But she left the house in the morning. Your testimony is meaningless. It doesn't cover the time of the incident. Not only had she taken the blame herself, but she had also cleared my name completely." I realized Cheng Mukchu was trying to get me out of this. But the way she handled it was just plain foolish. "Can I see her?" I asked directly. I didn't need Cheng Mukchu to make this kind of sacrifice for me. Ku Tongjo didn't say yes or no, but sincerely advised, "I wouldn't recommend it. You shouldn't see her right now. I have things I need to ask her." My gaze was stubborn and direct, making Ku Tongjo shudder internally. "I'll go ask the commander. Only if she agrees can you two meet." I nodded in thanks and headed back to my quarters. I cleaned up and took a shower. After being locked in that dark room for so many days, I felt like I reeked. As evening approached, Ku Tongjo finally came to find me, telling me I could go see Cheng Mukchu. I followed him to the door of another small, dark room. Ku Tongjo told me to go in by myself while he waited outside. I thanked him and stepped inside. When I saw Cheng Mukchu, I couldn't suppress my anger, but looking at how utterly exhausted she seemed, I softened my tone as much as I could. "Why take on this groundless charge?" Cheng Mukchu let out a bitter laugh, saying something that could infuriate anyone. "You. How do you know it's groundless? Maybe it really was me." My temper flared up instantly, and I raised my voice significantly. "Cheng Mukchu, I am in no mood to joke with you. Do you understand the gravity of this? Do you know what kind of fate awaits you?" "I know," she replied in a calm, slightly aggrieved voice. Hearing that, I let out a sigh. "If you know, why do this?" "Because I couldn't find a better way. They had already locked you away. I can't just stand by and watch them torture you. I'd rather it be me suffering instead." I sighed helplessly. Nothing has even been cleared up yet. Why would they be torturing me? This is a new era. No one uses forced confessions anymore. You should know that better than I do, but they wouldn't let me see you. I didn't know what you were going through in there. I knew she was just acting for her own sake. But I couldn't really stay angry at her, so I took a deep breath and asked, "What do we do now? You've taken all of this on by yourself. And then what? Are you going to die for a crime you didn't even commit?" For once, Cheng Mukchu wasn't messing around, she said seriously. "No, I won't. There are still so many mysteries surrounding this case. Before everything is completely cleared up, nothing is going to happen to me. You don't need to worry about me. Just focus on your own work. Don't do anything extra, and don't pay attention to anything involving me." I wanted to say more to keep her from getting dragged into this, but Ku Tongjo pushed the door open. "Comrade Gu, your time is up." That was all the time I could give you. He had no choice but to follow Ku Tongjo out of the room. After talking to Cheng Mukchu, my mood was even worse. Ku Tongjo saw how he looked and couldn't bear it, so he spoke up to comfort him. "Don't overthink it. You can't always tell what's in a person's heart. It's not your fault you misjudged her." I gave a bitter smile and shook my head. In this regard, he trusted Cheng Mukchu implicitly. He hadn't misjudged her. He was just incredibly frustrated that Cheng Mukchu had gone this far for him. To him, the moment he decided to leave, they had no more connection. But right now, he couldn't explain that to Ku Tongzhou. And he wasn't about to, so they parted ways at the crossroads. I returned to my room alone, only to find Zhao Xiaotong, whom I hadn't seen in ages, waiting at the door. She was standing there with a lunchbox, looking a bit flustered. I saw that you hadn't been to the cafeteria for a long time, and I didn't know what happened. So I came here every day to wait. I finally caught you. I was stunned. Thank you, Comrade Zhao. Zhao Xiaotong shook her head, dismissing the thanks, and asked with concern, so what actually happened? Why haven't you shown up for days? I realized the news had been suppressed. Others had no clue what was going on, so I brushed it off. Nothing happened. I was just transferred elsewhere for a few days of training. That's a relief. I was worried something had gone wrong. I haven't seen Comrade Cheng Mukchu, who lived with me, for a long time either. By the end, her voice had grown quieter and quieter. It sounded like a soft murmur. Hearing that name from someone else's mouth, I gave a bitter smile and didn't say much more. We exchanged a few brief pleasantries before saying goodbye. That night, I lay in bed, tossing and turning, unable to fall asleep. My thoughts were racing. He couldn't find a way to break out of this situation. If they couldn't catch the real spy in this incident, Cheng Mukchu would very likely face the firing squad. The country had zero tolerance for spies. Having Cheng Mukchu's life on my conscience was even more painful than dying myself. I couldn't help but want to question the heavens. Is this why you gave me a second chance? To watch me endure an even more cruel death? Since it was cleared up that I had nothing to do with the incident, he quickly returned to work. Standing beneath this building again, I instinctively looked toward the guards on duty. She smiled and greeted him, but it was someone he didn't recognize. It was no longer Cheng Mukchu. I took a deep breath. I gave her a smile back and headed into the building. The matter was kept under wraps, and the other members of the team had no idea. They crowded around me, friendly, asking where I'd been and what Comrade Ku had said. I didn't give them a straight answer right away. I decided to test the waters first. She just told them you had some personal business and had taken leave. So I stuck to her story, saying I had taken time off to handle some personal matters. But everything is settled now, and my colleagues didn't press for more details. Instead, they started pouring their hearts out, saying, "It's a relief you're back. You have no idea, Comrade Ku has been acting like a madman lately. He's been burying himself in the third volume while pressuring all of us. We were about to hit our breaking point." I forced a smile and offered a few words of token comfort. Then I urged everyone to get back to work. Ku Tongzhou is a total science fanatic. Since he arrived, he's been dumping all sorts of miscellaneous work onto me. He only cares about the experiments, so the team members actually get along with me better. They're more comfortable with me, and I don't usually throw my weight around like a typical boss. That's why they felt comfortable complaining to me so freely, but I just wasn't in the mood. I was just putting on a brave face, my mind completely occupied by thoughts of Cheng Mukchu. I had no idea how she was doing now. Ever since that one time, I hadn't been allowed to visit her again. 5 days later, I found out that Cheng Mukchu was going to be taken away from here. She was being sent elsewhere for investigation. I hesitated for a long time. In the end, I went to beg Commander Liu. I just wanted to see her off. If this turned out to be our last time seeing each other, I didn't want to carry even more guilt. The day Cheng Mukchu was loaded onto the helicopter, the weather was exceptionally gloomy. Swirling yellow sand filled the sky, as if it were going to swallow the whole city into a vortex. I saw Cheng Mukchu, who looked so much thinner, and for a moment, I didn't know what to say. It was Cheng Mukchu who looked at me with a smile, her eyes full of tenderness. She spoke softly, "Don't worry, everything will be fine." That's what she said, but in reality, she didn't have much hope of coming back alive. After all, the situation was incredibly complicated. If it could have been cleared up easily, she wouldn't have been taken away in the first place. So, after a long pause, she asked with a pleading tone, "Ji Yufeng, if I manage to come back safely, will you forgive me?" She knew she shouldn't be taking advantage of the situation. She despised herself for acting this way, but she truly wanted my forgiveness. She didn't want to leave this world still carrying the weight of my hatred. At that final moment, I couldn't hold back my tears. My voice choked up as I said, "I have never hated you." Having lived 2 lifetimes, time had long since smoothed over everything. I had nothing against Cheng Mukchu. Everything is fate, it's best to just accept it calmly. Our farewell was interrupted when the guards came to escort her. Cheng Mukchu's final words were, "Live your life well." Then she followed the men onto the helicopter. Ever since that day, I never received any news about Cheng Mukchu. I threw myself back into my work as usual. Only now, there was one science fanatic, and now there were 2. It was as if he and Ku Tongzhou were in some kind of competition. Whoever spent the most time in the lab barely ate or slept. I desperately needed to keep myself busy, he simply couldn't stop. If he stopped, his mind would be flooded with thoughts of Cheng Mukchu, and perhaps because of him, she. That conclusion was driving him insane, and he refused to dwell on it. He could only keep finding things to do, forcing his brain to stay active. The rest of the team watched the two of them, feeling both admiring and utterly exhausted. Yet, they were truly fired up by the pair, working hard right alongside them. Under this atmosphere, at 10:23 and 8 seconds, under this atmosphere. The experiment made surprisingly rapid progress. When the first small trial launch succeeded, everyone stood there, stunned in disbelief. Perhaps happiness had arrived too suddenly. No one could believe it, leaving the whole place in dead silence for a full half-minute. Then, someone let out the first cheer, followed by a chorus of cheers and tears of joy. Ku Tongzhou and I were no exception. We locked eyes, both of us seeing hot tears in the other's sockets. And along with this good news, came the moment I returned home from work and saw Cheng Mukchu at my door. I rubbed my eyes in disbelief, looking several times before I was certain it was truly her. I couldn't help but run toward her, as if I had been trapped in darkness for so long and finally welcomed the light. The moment I truly saw her, the heart that had been hanging in the balance for so long finally settled. Cheng Mukchu felt a wave of tenderness as she watched me run up and stand before her. She spoke up to comfort me. "It's all right, don't worry. It's all been cleared up, right? You're cleared to return to work, right?" My rushed, eager questioning made Cheng Mukchu's nose sting. She replied softly, "Yes, it's okay. Everything has been cleared up." So, who exactly did this? I didn't know if Cheng Mukchu knew the full details, but I needed an answer. As a result, I heard Cheng Mukchu's reply, "It's someone you would never expect." I was stunned. This answer felt so familiar. I asked tentatively, "Do I know them?" Cheng Mukchu didn't keep me in suspense. She whispered a name, Zhao Xiaotong. "What?" I exclaimed in disbelief, then immediately covered my mouth after realizing where I was. When I spoke again, my voice was much quieter. How could it be her? She doesn't even have access to those confidential materials. Because I was too shocked, I blurted out a series of questions. Cheng Mukchu only said one sentence, and I finally understood the crux of it. But no one noticed that day was a procurement day. On procurement days, Zhao Xiaotong could go out as she pleased, without needing to report. Because it was already on the schedule, no one suspected her for leaving. And no one would ever think to look in that direction. I learned from Cheng Mukchu that Zhao Xiaotong never actually betrayed the country, because she was an outsider all along. She was a spy raised by another nation to infiltrate Long Country since she was a child. Because the background checks for researchers are so meticulous, she blended in by posing as a regular guard. Later, she leveraged her talent for socializing to build good relationships with everyone. She was the one allowed to go out for supplies. She was the one who knew how to handle people. She was incredibly familiar with the base. She could appear anywhere without suspicion, and she was famous for being well-liked. Every interaction she had seemed perfectly reasonable. Because of her high emotional intelligence and way with words, everyone was happy to vent and chat with her. Getting a few pieces of information out of someone is practically standard procedure, and she finally gathered what she needed. She wanted to sneak it out that day, but she never expected the state to intercept it. She then teamed up with her contact in the village and framed me for everything. I can't even describe how I felt. I just sat there in a daze for a long time after hearing it. Zhao Xiaotong was the first person he met here. She was always so poised and measured. So polite. She really was the kind of person who made everyone around her feel at ease. But I never imagined it was all a carefully practiced act, just a way to fish for intelligence. Her face flashed in his mind, beaming with that smile as she told him how great this place was. Telling him to let her know if he needed anything, or standing at his door with a lunchbox, saying, "I noticed you didn't seem to eat anything." The scenes flickered through his mind one by one. It would be impossible not to be moved at all. It seemed his sincerity had been met with betrayal yet again. I let out a helpless laugh, but there was an endless bitterness in that smile. Cheng Mukchu didn't know how to comfort him, so she just looked at him with concern. "What will happen to her?" I murmured softly. It was half a question, half talking to myself, but Cheng Mukchu gave him the answer anyway. "You already know." Yeah, he knew. There was no need to ask that question. A spy is unforgivable. He felt no sympathy for her, nor any pity. It was just a shame. Such a seemingly wonderful person turned out to be someone here to harm our country. Many days later, news of Zhao Xiaotong spread throughout the base, and everyone was shocked. Colleagues from the team came to ask him in disbelief, and he gave them a firm confirmation every time. Everyone was shocked at first, then furious. Furious that she was a spy, and furious at her deception. Because everyone had been close to her to some degree, and those on our team had been especially close. Since they were the primary targets for her intel gathering, the matter eventually died down. When Zhao Xiaotong was taken away, I didn't go to watch. I only heard from a colleague that she insisted on wearing her gloves when she left. My eyelashes trembled. After this incident, the base conducted a new background check on everyone and transferred a group of people out. Cheng Mukchu was one of them. When she came to find me for a final goodbye, both of us were surprisingly calm. Chang Mukchu sighed helplessly, and said softly, Ji Yu Feng, I'm leaving. Where are you going? I'm being transferred back to my original unit. The organization thinks I'm not suited to stay here anymore, so they're sending me back to northern Shaanxi. That's good. Go on back. Go back and be a good commander. It was the answer she expected. Chang Mukchu gave a bitter smile and asked, pretending to be casual, when will you go back? I sighed softly. I don't know. Maybe I'll never go back. The conversation ended there. After a long silence, I heard Chang Mukchu force out a fine, followed by a cautious, tentative question. Can I have one last request? I raised an eyebrow. Go ahead. Can you come watch the stars with me one last time? Chang Mukchu asked with hesitation. But I gave her a crisp, clear answer. Sure. We climbed to the top of the mountain. The sky was filled with twinkling stars, and the evening cicadas were even more audible in the stillness. The flickering fireflies in the distance seemed to be keeping them company. Everything felt perfectly romantic. Yet, this was their final goodbye. It had been such a long time since I'd felt this relaxed. It felt as if a breeze carried the sweet scent of grass and flowers. He lay on the grass, gazing up at the sky, and neither of them said a word. Suddenly, a shooting star streaked across the sky, and Chang Mukchu clasped her hands to make a wish. I found it quite novel. She, of all people, the one who never believed in gods or spirits, was actually doing something like this. Chang Mukchu, I asked, what did you wish for? I wished that the person I love lives a safe and smooth life forever. My eyelashes trembled, but Chang Mukchu had no intention of making things awkward for him. She took the initiative to change the subject. Don't you have a wish? Didn't you used to love making wishes on shooting stars? As you said, that was the past. He was no longer the man he used to be. After living 2 lifetimes, he finally understood that making wishes was the most useless thing. In his previous life, he wished that Chang Mukchu would love him. But he waited until his dying breath and still didn't receive her love. Later, he wished to never see Chang Mukchu again. To never be entangled with her anymore. As it turned out, not only did he see her, but he nearly lost his life for her, leaving him with no peace for the rest of his days. So, what was the point of wishing? Everything just turned out the complete opposite. They chatted about everything under the sun for a long time. When the night grew deep and it was time to leave, Chang Mukchu finally asked the question buried deep in her heart. Ji Yu Feng, can we still be friends? I took one look at her, and said calmly, if that's what you want, I have no objections. Though, it probably won't make much of a difference. I might just be trapped here for the rest of my life. Upon hearing this, Chang Mukchu blurted out, do you have any regrets? Regrets about what? I didn't catch the meaning of her words at first, so I asked her to explain. Chang Mukchu clarified, about volunteering to be transferred here. No regrets. He was doing what he loved. He was fighting for his passion, how could he have any regrets? Chang Mukchu went quiet for a moment, then smiled and said, good. I hope you succeed soon. For our country, and for yourself. I will. The two said their goodbyes under a sky full of stars. From that day on, Chang Mukchu returned to the Shanbei military region. Since then, she lost all contact with me. She knew where he was. But she couldn't go to see that person. She couldn't get in, and she couldn't go back anymore. Years later, news that the country had successfully developed a new type of weapon spread through every street and alley. My photo and name were splashed across the headlines of major newspapers and broadcast on a loop on television. Chang Mukchu looked at the spirited, triumphant man on the screen, as if seeing him just as he was when they first met. That man, in the end, had truly become the person he wanted to be most. He had shattered the life he once had.